Bhakti Rasamrta Sindhu Eastern Division 3rd Wave, Bhava Bhakti, Atha Bhava devotional service whose constitutional characteristic is its situation on the platform of unalloyed goodness, Suddha Sattva, is like a ray of the sun of Prema. Such devotional service causes the heart to become softened by various tastes and it is called Bhava. Notes: in the second wave of the Eastern Division of Sri Bhakti Rasamrta Sindhu 3 divisions of Bhakti have been described: 1. Sadhana Bhakti, 2. Bhava Bhakti and 3. Prema Bhakti. Sadhana Bhakti is of two types: 1. Vaidhi Bhakti and 2. Raganuga Bhakti. Raganuga Bhakti is also of two types: 1. Kamanuga and 2. Sambandhanuga. All of this has been thoroughly analyzed up to this point. Now in this third wave the explanation of Bhava Bhakti begins. The symptoms of Uttama Bhakti are that it is favorable to Krishna's pleasure, anukulya, and it involves the culture of activities in relationship to Krishna, Krishna Anushalana. The word Anushalana means the accomplishment of endeavors favorable to Sri Krishna with the body, mind and speech. From this understanding, the general character of Bhakti, Samanya Bhakti, may be divided into two kinds: 1. Shtarupa and 2. Bhavarumpa. Shtampa has been further divided into two parts: 1. Sadhana Rupa, activity as the cause of bringing about Bhava Bhakti, and 2. Phalarupa, activities as the effect of Bhava Bhakti, or in other words those activities which follow as a result of the development of Bhava Bhakti. These are known as anubhavas. Activities as the cause of Bhava Bhakti, Sadhana Rupa, have been elaborately described by the analysis of Vaidhi and Raganuga Bhakti given in the previous wave on Sadhana Bhakti. Activities as the result of Bhava Bhakti, Phalarupa, or in other words the anubhavas, will be described in the next division in connection with the description of rasa. According to the methodology of rasa, Bhava Bhakti is also of two forms: 1. Sthayi Bhavarupa and 2. Sankari Bhavatupa. Sankari Bhavarupa will be described next in the context of rasa. Sthayi Bhavarupa is described here in relationship to Bhava Bhakti. Bhava is the essential element of this Bhakti. It is alluded to by the words rati, prema, sneha, etc. This Bhava is the sprout of prema. In other words, Bhava is the name of the state just prior to the manifestation of prema. Bhava is also described as the ray of the sun of prema. Just as the first ray of dawn, prior to the rising of the sun, begins to illuminate the universe, similarly on the manifestation of Bhava, prior to the rising of prema, the heart becomes melted and characterized by affection for Sri Krishna. By continuous engagement in the performance of bhajan, such as Sravana, Kirtan, etc., when all material contamination has been eradicated from the heart and when the heart is fit for the manifestation of Suddha Sattva, then by the Hladani potency of Sri Krishna which continually diffuses Suddha Sattva in all directions, Suddha Sattva becomes manifest in the heart of the sadhaka and it is then transformed into rati or bhava. What is meant by the word Suddha Sattva? The Svarupa Shakti, or Cit Shakti, of Sri Krishna is self-manifest and all of its functions, Vritti, are also self-manifest. By the specialized function, Visheshavritti, of the self-manifest Svarupa Shakti, the form of the Lord is manifest along with his eternal associates. That specialized function of Svarupa Shakti is called Suddha Sattva. Because it has not even the slightest connection with Maya, it is also called Visuddha Sattva. The personality of Godhead is the form of eternality, bliss, and knowledge, Sat Cit Ananda. From the existential aspect, Sat, of the Svarupa Shakti of the Lord, the Sandhini potency is eternally extant. From the cognitive aspect, Cit, the Sambit potency is manifest and from the aspect of transcendental bliss, Ananda, the Hladani potency is present. These three aspects eternally permeate the specialized function, Visheshavritti, of Svarupa Shakti, or in other words Visuddha Sattva. But sometimes the presence of the Hladani aspect within Visuddha Sattva becomes prominent, at which times the influence of the other two aspects is less. Sometimes the Sandhini aspect becomes prominent, at which time Samvit and Hladani is less, and sometimes the Samvit aspect becomes prominent, at which times Hladani and Sandhini is less. In Visuddha Sattva, when the manifestation of Hladani becomes prominent, it is called Guhyavidya, confidential knowledge. There are two functions or faculties, vritti, of Guhyavidya Bhakti and that which introduces Bhakti. The state of Visuddha Sattva, which is also called Rati or Bhava, is the faculty known as Bhakti, Bhakti-Friti. It is eternally manifest on account of being the self-manifest faculty, vritti, of the self-manifest personality of Godhead. In respect to the second function of Guhyavidya, that which introduces Bhakti, it is the supreme ocean of mercy Sri Krishna himself who always transmits knowledge by which Bhakti can be known. When the faculty known as Bhakti, Bhaktivritti, in the form of Visuddha Sattva, manifests in the purified heart of the sadhaka, it is called Rati. The appearance of Rati is not the effect of any performance of sadhana. Rati is absolute and self-manifest. It is not attainable by sadhana. The performance of bhajana and sadhana is necessary only for making the heart fit to receive the appearance of Visuddha Sattva. When by the performance of bhajans such as Sravana, Kirtan etc., all contamination is eradicated from the heart becomes freed from all anarthas and becomes situated steadily on the platform of Nishtha, then asakti attachment for the Lord manifests. When the heart is thus purified, it becomes eligible to receive the manifestation of Visuddha Sattva. This attainment of eligibility for Suddha Sattva is itself the effect of sadhana and bhajan. The attainment of bhakti or rati is not an effect of sadhana because rati is an eternally established self-manifest reality. It is not something which is dependent on any kind of sadhana. When the heart attains eligibility for the appearance of Suddha Sattva, rati manifests there of its own accord. The constitutional characteristic, svarupalakshana, of Bhava Bhakti is its situation on the platform of unalloyed goodness, Suddha Sattva. This is indicated in the verse by the word Suddha Sattva vices Atma. As above mentioned, this characteristic of Suddha Sattva is the essential nature of Bhava Bhakti. In the sun there is density, whereas in the sun ray there is laxity. In the same way, the Svarupashakti faculty is very thick in Prema and in Bhava it is thin. This is the only difference between Prema and Bhava. The constitutional nature of both Prema and Bhava is the same because they are both comprised of the essential nature of Svarupashakti predominated by the Hladani potency. The marginal characteristic, Tatastha Lakshana, of Bhava Bhakti is that it gives rise to various tastes which soften the heart. This is indicated in the verse by the words Rosibi Siddha Masram Yakrite. There are three kinds of taste which are referred to here. 1. Prapti Abhilasa, desire for the attainment of Lord Krishna. 2. Anukulya Abhilasa, dhamg, that which is favorable to Krishna, and 3. Sauharda Abhilasa, serving the Lord with affection. When these three kinds of taste arise, Bhava Bhakti softens the heart. This special form of Suddha Sattva known as Rati manifests in the mental faculty, Manovritti, of the sadhaka and then attains identification, Svarupata, with the mental faculty. Although it is self-manifest, it appears as though it has been manifest by the faculty of the mind. In reality, this Rati is by nature self-tasting, Svayamasvata, in other words, it itself is the object of taste for the devotee, and yet at the same time it becomes the cause of tasting Sri Krishna and Krishna's pastimes. Notes, as stated above, Bhava or Rati is the essential nature of Svarupashakti predominated by Hladani. It is by nature alcognizant and self-illuminating. This Rati reveals Sri Krishna, his associates, pastimes, etc. Lt appears within the mental faculty of the devotee and then attains the state of oneness with the mental faculty, Tad Atma, just as fire, when set to an iron Tad, permeates through every part of the rod and appears like being one with the iron rod. In actuality, it is self-manifest, but it appears as if it has been brought into manifestation by the mental faculty. Southern Division First Wave, Vibhava, Mangalakarana, let there always be victory to that Sanatana, residing in Mathura, who is the destroyer of all sins. Being very powerful, he is one's exclusive shelter. He is easily served and worthy of worship. Notes, in the Nod, Srila Prabhupada explains that in this verse, the word Sanatana may be interpreted in two ways. If Sanatana is taken to mean Lord Krishna, then the word Agadamana, destroyer, can be understood to mean the destroyer of the Aga demon. The word Sahajarupina can be understood to mean that he is naturally beautiful, and Sanatanatana means that he possesses a Satsi Idhyana and a body. That Lord Krishna is naturally beautiful indicates that his body is not made beautiful by being adorned with various ornaments and decorations. Rather, his body is naturally, Sahajarupina, the exclusive shelter, Ananyashrayi, of excessive beauty, embellished with sweetness. He is worshipped, Nishavita, in Madhura Mandala with all excellence. If Sanatana is taken to mean Sanatana Goswami, then the words Agadamana, mean the destroyer of sins, Aga, and Nishavita, Sahajarupina mean that he is easily worshipped and adored. In the southern division of Bhakti Rasamrta Sindhu, the general symptoms of Bhagavad Bhakti Rasa are being explained. In this division there are 5 waves: 1. Vibhava, that which is the cause of tasting rati; 2. Anubhava, bodily transformations which illustrate the emotions of the mind; 3. Satvikabhava, ecstatic symptoms which arise from Suddhasattva, or in other words, when the mind is overwhelmed with emotion in relationship to Krishna; 4. Vyabhikari bhava, disturbing emotions originating from and serving to enlarge the sthayi bhava; and 5. Sthayi bhava, that bhava or permanent condition of the heart which dominates the favorable and unfavorable emotions. It is also known as Krishna rati. Being nourished by the aggregate of Vibhava, Anubhava etc., rati, attraction, toward Krishna in the form of supreme rasa is obtained. This matter is discussed in this section. When the elements of Vibhava, Anubhava, Sattvic bhava, and Vyabhikari bhava, aroused through the activities of Sravana, Kirtana etc., are combined with rati toward Krishna in the form of one sthayi bhava, then tastefulness is obtained within the heart of the devotee and is called Bhakti Rasa. Notes, affection for Krishna in the form of sthayi bhava is of 5 types: Shanta, Dajya, Sakya, Vatsalya, and Madhura. When Vibhava, Anubhava etc., are combined with the sthayi bhava, then Krishna rati obtains a supremely marvelous, Kamatkari, taste and becomes changed into rasa. In this way Shanta rati is changed into Shanta rasa, Dajya rati is changed into Dajya rasa, Sakya rati is changed into Sakya rasa, Vatsalya rati is changed into Vatsalya rasa, and Madhura rati is changed into Madhura rasa. The word rasa has 2 meanings. Rasiate, asvadiate, iti rasa, that which is tasted is called rasa, and rasiati, asvadiati, iti rasa, he who tastes is called rasa. The very essence or life, prana, of rasa is astonishment, kamatkara. Where astonishment is not found there can be no rasa. Alankara Kaustubha 5/7, when a wondrous, vismayatmak, emotion, bhava, arises in the mind of anyone by seeing, hearing and experiencing such a thing as was never previously seen, heard, or experienced, it is called kamatkarita, astonishment. This astonishment is the essence, sara, or life, prana, of rasa. But the existence of astonishment due to the presence of some tasteful object, does not alone constitute rasa. Novelty or unprecedentedness, apurvata, of the astonishing taste is also essential. This novelty is such that, upon tasting the object, the natural function of both the external and internal senses becomes stunned. The function of all the senses, being concentrated in the wondrousness, kamatkarita, of that taste, are completely unable to perceive any other object. When such an astonishing taste of the relishable object is maintained, it is called rasa. The complete symptoms of rasa are present within the Supreme Lord, who is the form of bliss, Ananda Svarupa Brahma, as stated in the Sruti, 2/7, Rasove Saha. Sri Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Parabrahma, the very form of rasa, Rasa Svarupa. Therefore, when by performing sravana, kirtana etc., all the activities of the senses become stunned, and one obtains an astonishing taste of the ever-fresh, naturally increasing sweetness of Sri Krishna, which was never previously heard, seen, or experienced, at that time, sthāyi bhava becomes changed into bhakti rasa. Just as curd itself is tasteful, yet when sugar, ghee, black pepper, and camphor are mixed into it, the mixture is called rasala and it becomes as tasteful as exceedingly sweet nectar. In the same way, Krishna Ratai is naturally tasteful, yet by mixing Vibhava, Anubhava, Sattvika Bhava, and Vyabhikari Bhava into it, excessively tasty nectar in the form of Bhakti Rasa is obtained. Translator's note: in this fifth text of the Southern Division, first wave of BRS, Bhakti Rasa is being explained. In the explanation which follows the verse, two words are very important to understand: Katmakarita, astonishment or wonder, and apurvita, novelty or unprecedentedness. Bhakti Rasa is defined in the verse as the combination of sthāyi bhava with vibhava, anubhava, etc. This combination brings about a wonderful emotion within the mind which is called kamatkarita or astonishment. This astonishment is instigated by the perception of something which was not previously seen, heard, or experienced. In order to distinguish this experience from the ordinary experience of astonishment in the mundane realm, the word apurvita, unprecedented, is used. To qualify the degree of the astonishment, he explains that upon tasting the object, all of the senses become stunned and are completely unable to perceive anything else. This complete concentration of the senses, both external and internal, in the tasting of the object, gives rise to the various bhavas, which are thus combined with the sthāyi bhava. This combination is called rasa. Only that person in whose heart exists, from his past life and from this life, the impressions for Uttama Bhakti, is eligible to taste bhakti rasa. Notes: in this verse, the qualification for tasting bhakti rasa is discussed. Even though one may be observed to possess the impressions from this life for the existence of ratai, it is also essential to have such impressions from the previous life in order to obtain rasa. If a person who is devoid of any offense, and who having accepted the shelter of the lotus feet of the spiritual master, Guru Padashraya, obtains ratai in this life by continuous performance of sadhana, then in the next life only, he can obtain the taste of bhakti rasa, not in this life. Those persons whose faults have been completely destroyed by the influence of bhakti, whose hearts are delighted, in other words, who have already acquired eligibility for the manifestation of Suddha Sattva within their hearts, who are Ajayjavala, radiant, in others' words who are fully enriched with knowledge, who are attached to Srimad Bhagavatam, who always delight in the association of Rasika Vaisnavas, and whose lives know only the wealth of happiness in devotional service unto the lotus feet of Sri Govinda, who are in intimate love, prema, in other words who with firm faith, nistha, engage in the performance of sadhana, sravana, kirtan, etc., giving rise to bhava and the exceeding mercy of the Lord, sadhana giving rise to the development of rasa, by the impressions residing in their hearts, due to the previous life and to this life, they are able to relish, by direct experience, radiantly blissful ratai, instigated by the compelling elements known as vibhava. In the ultimate stage they obtain the fully matured state of bliss known as prema. Even if this prema has achieved fitness to be tasted to only a very slight extent, being aroused by a very slight manifestation of the compelling forces, vibhava, it is nonetheless very tasteful at that time. On obtaining complete cooperation of the compelling forces, excessive nourishment is obtained. Notes: in the 5 verses above mentioned, varieties of sadhana leading to the development of rasa, factors that act as assistants to the development of rasa, degrees of development of rasa and how this rasa is developed, are all explained. Freedom from offenses by sravana, kirtana, etc., eligibility for the appearance of Suddha Sattva, love for Srimad Bhagavatam, association with Rasika Vaisnavas and execution of the limbs of bhakti leading to intimate love, prema, are all counted as varieties of sadhana giving rise to the development of rasa. The impressions gained from very firm execution of bhakti in the previous life and in this life, are considered as assistants to the development of rasa. This rasa develops when the compelling factors known as vibhava meet with rati situated within the radiant heart of such devotees, who have become fit by all the above mentioned factors. In that condition, the devotees are able to relish the taste of bhakti rasa. Within the heart of the devotee who has attained prema, that prema redoubles upon union with even a slight manifestation of the compelling forces. When there is full nourishment of prema, then the devotee relishes the taste of bhakti rasa to the fullest extent. Sri Krishna, the devotees of Krishna and the sound of Krishna's flute, are the causes of rati etc., vibhava. Hajya, laughter, etc., anubhavas, and stamha, becoming stunned, etc., the 8 sattvika bhavas, are the actions of rati, the actions which follow after or illustrate rati. Nirvida, disappointment, disgust, despondency, or humiliation, etc., vyabhikari bhavas, are assistants to rati. At the time of the tasting of rasa, all these develop one after another and are called by the names vibhava, anubhava, sattvika bhava, and vyabhikari bhava. Notes: Sri Krishna and the devotees of Krishna are classified under the section known as vibhava. Stamha, becoming stunned, svita, perspiration, romanka, horripilation, svarabhanga, hoarseness, kampa, tremor, vivarnata, pallor, ashrapeta, shedding of tears, and pralaya, devastation, are the 8 sattvika bhavas. Nirvida, disappointment, vishad, lamentation, etc., are called vyabhikari or sanchari bhavas, of which there are 33. These 4 kinds of bhavas will be described in full detail hereafter. That which is the cause of tasting rati is called vibhava. There are 2 divisions of vibhava, 1, alambana vibhava and 2, udapana vibhava. In the Agni Purana it is said that vibhava is of 2 types, 1, that in which rati is tasted, alambana, and that by which rati is tasted, udapana. Those who are learned in the science of rasa have accepted that Sri Krishna and the devotees of Krishna are classified in the division known as alambana vibhava. Sri Krishna is the subject of rati and the devotees are the shelter or repository of rati. Notes: Sri Krishna and the devotees of Krishna are both alambana vibhava, that in which rati is tasted. Alambana vibhava is of 2 types: Vasaya alambana vibhava and Ashraya alambana vibhava. Rati goes toward that which it is aiming, this is called Vishaya alambana vibhava. Sri Krishna is the subject toward which rati goes. That which is the shelter or repository of rat, in other words, that in which rati resides, is called Ashraya alambana vibhava. The devotees of Krishna are the shelters of such rati. By the devotees of Krishna is implied, the eternal associates of Maharasa Murti Sri Krishna. By obtaining the mercy of the Lord's eternal associates, present devotees may also obtain to the position of being repositories of that rati, Asraya alambana vibhava. By the word adi, etc., used in the above verse, ratiatar meaning rati, etc., is implied the secondary divisions of rati, gana rati, known as hajya, laughter, adbhuta, wonder, vira, chivalry, karuna, compassion, raudra, anger, bhayanak, dread, and vibhatsa, ghastliness. Sri Krishna is the Vishaya alambana vibhava, and the devotees are the Ashraya alambana vibhava of these indirect mellows, gana rati, also. The secondary divisions of rati, gana rati, are all of the same group, sajataya. They are not of a different group, vijatiya, or opponents, viraha. Where opponents are the shelter, ashraya, stimulating rati, they are enemies of Krishna and not the devotees of Krishna. Opponents in the subject of rati will be described later. Translators note, the words sajataya and vijatiya are important to understand. The literal translation of sajataya is, of the same class or group. Vijatiya means of a different class or group. Yet these definitions do not convey the full import of the words here. For this discussion it may be more meaningful to translate them as favorable and unfavorable. The following example will help to clarify the meaning. In the Sringara Rasa the gopis may sometimes become angry at Krishna. That anger becomes the cause of tasting Krishna Ratai. So in this case anger is favorable or of the same class as the Ratai. This is called Sajataya. When the enemies of Krishna exhibit anger, it may also be the cause of stimulating Ratai, yet it is of a different class than the Ratai. This is called Vijatiya. As above mentioned, the opponents of Krishna, Vrahai, are also counted as Asraya stimulating Ratai, in the devotees, yet these refer to the enemies of Krishna and not to the devotees of Krishna. The original Supreme Personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, is the crown jewel amongst all heroes. All inconceivable qualities are eternally situated in him. When Sri Krishna, appearing in his own form, becomes the subject of Ratai, Visaya Alambana Vibhava, this is called Svarupa. When he becomes the subject of Ratai in an alternate form, this is known as Anyarupa. Translator's note, in the above verse, the words Anyarupa Svarupabhyam indicate two features in which Sri Krishna becomes the subject of Ratai, namely Svarupa and Anyarupa. In text 18 an example will be given to explain the meaning of Krishna as the subject of Ratai in an alternate form, Anyarupa, and in texts 19 to 22, Krishna as the Visaya of Ratai appearing in his own form, Svarupa, will be explained. The following is an example of Krishna acting as the subject of Ratai while appearing in a different form, Anyarupa. How is it that my love for this cowherd boy, who is catching hold of a calf in the midst of all the cowherd boys, is suddenly arising? Being unable to determine this, Sri Baladeva was struck with wonder. Notes, in the Brahma Vimohana Lila, Sri Krishna assumed the form of innumerable calves and cowherd boys. Sri Baladeva did not know of this secret because on that day he had not gone to the forest with Sri Krishna to graze the cows. One day he saw a cowherd boy catching hold of a calf. Sri Baladeva surged with such love toward that cowherd boy, as he normally has toward Krishna. Being unable to determine why this was so, he was struck with wonder and became stunned. The purport of this example is that Sri Krishna himself in an alternate form, Anyarupa, in other words, in the form of one of the cowherd boys, became the subject, Visaya, of love, Visaya Alambana Vibhava. Krishna's personal features, Svarupam, are of two types, 1. Avratarupa, covered, and 2. Prakatarupa, manifested. 20. Anyapshadanakanam Svarupam Praktam Avratam. When Krishna is covered by different kinds of dress, his personal feature is covered. The following is an example of Krishna becoming the subject, Visaya, of Ratai in a covered form, Avratarupa. Sri Uddhava said, "How is it that this woman in the inner chambers of the palace in Dvaraka is causing such unique attraction to arise in me? It must be that Sri Krishna himself, having accepted the dress of a woman in order to play some fun, is frolicking in this way." Notes, 1. Sri Krishna, adopting the dress of a beautiful woman for the purpose of amusement, was moving about in the inner chambers of the palace in Dvaraka. Sri Uddhava arrived there. Seeing that beautiful woman, there arose within him the same prema which he has toward Krishna. He began to consider why such affection had arisen in him toward this woman. Then he understood that Sri Krishna himself was moving about in the dress of a woman. Jiva Goswami in his commentary has explained that this pastime is hinted at in Srimad Bhagavatam, 10.6936. Somewhere Krishna, the Lord of mystic power, was moving about in disguise among the homes of ministers and other citizens in order to understand what each of them was thinking. How it is that Sri Krishna covered himself in this way is not at all astonishing. This is an instance of Sri Krishna himself, Svarupa, becoming the subject of Ratai, Visaya Alambana Vibhava, in a covered manner, Avratamyupa. The following is an example of Sri Krishna becoming the subject of Ratai, Visaya Alambana, in his own manifest form, Prakatarupa. Sri Uddhava, beholding Sri Krishna in his manifest form, Prakatarupa, spoke as follows, his neck marked with 3 lines like a conch shell, his beautiful eyes glossy as a lotus flower, his lustrous limbs blackish like a tamal tree, raven black hair covering his head like a canopy, his chest graced with a very fine mark of Srivatsa, and his hands adorned with the conch, kakra, etc., that Sri Krishna, the killer of the Madhu demon, Madhurapa, who is the personification of sweetness, Madhura Murti, is bestowing excessive bliss upon me. Beginning in this verse and continuing up to verse, the transcendental qualities of the hero Sri Krishna are being enumerated. In this verse the first 6 qualities are given. 1. Suramaya Anga, the limbs of his body are exceedingly beautiful. 2. Sarva Salakshana Yutta, he is marked with all auspicious characteristics. 3. Rusura, extremely pleasing. His beauty bestows great bliss upon the eyes. 4. Tejasanvita, he is possessed of a powerful effulgence. 5. Balian, he is possessed of tremendous strength. And 6. Vayasanvita, he is always enjoying variegated amorous pastimes, being ever situated in newly blossomed youth. Notes: those things by which the emotions of the heart are provoked, udipta, in other words those things by which the heart becomes illuminated, ajayjavala, with exuberance towards Sri Krishna, are called udapan vibhava. Here a brief introduction is given of some prominent stimulating factors, udapan vibhava, namely, Sri Krishna's bodily features and characteristics. This subject will be fully described ahead, beginning from text 2.1.301. Sri Krishna possesses unlimited transcendental qualities. Srila Rupa Goswami has explained that of these, 64 are especially prominent. Of the 64 qualities, Rupa Goswami first gives a description of 50 qualities. The above verse has listed the first 6 of these qualities. The characteristics, salakshana, i.e. the second quality mentioned above, of the transcendental bhati of Sri Krishna are of 2 types, 1. Ganatha, attributes of the body, and 2. Ankathic marks or signs on the body. Redness, tallness, etc. are considered as attributes, Ganatha salakshana. 7 parts of his body are reddish, alima the corners of his eyes, the soles of his feet, the palms of his hands, his palate, lips, tongue, and his nails. There is tallness, tungata, in 6 places, his chest, shoulders, nails, nose, waist, and physical frame. 3 parts of his body are broad, vishala his waist, forehead, and chest. 3 parts of his body are short, lagu his neck, thighs, and genital. 5 parts of his body are long, dirgha his nose, arms, eyes, chin, and knees. There is finness, sukshmata, in 5 parts of his body, his skin, the hair on his head, his bodily hairs, teeth, and his fingertips. There is depth, gambhirata, in 3 places, his navel, voice, and intelligence. These 32 auspicious characteristics are called attributes, ganatha. The symbols which are found on the palms of his hands and on the soles of his feet, such as the kakra etc., are called ankatha salakshana, marks. Second wave, anubhava, the emotions of the mind, in other words Krishna rati, are illustrated or understood by the external manifestations known as anubhavas. Generally when these anubhavas are manifested as external transformations, they are called by the name udbhasvara. The following are the anubhavas of Bhakti Rasa: 1. Nritya, dancing, 2. Vilahita, rolling on the ground, 3. Jita, singing, 4. Krashana, loud crying, 5. Tanu Motana, writhing of the body, 5. Humkara, to roar, 7. Mhanam, yawning, 8. Shvesa breathing heavily, 9. Loka Anapekshita, to not take heed of others, 10. Lalas Rava, foaming at the mouth, 11. Atahasa, loud laughter, 12. Gurna, staggering about, and 13. Hika, a fit of hiccups. Notes: in the first wave of the Southern Division, a description was given of Alambana and Udapana Vibhava of Bhakti Rasa. In this wave the Anubhavas of Bhakti Rasa will be described. The word Anubhava has been derived from its 2 component parts Anu and Bhava. The meaning of anu is that which comes after or that which follows. Therefore, those symptoms which arise or follow as an after effect are called anubhavas. In other words, it is the effect, prabhava, itself of anything which is called anubhava. Acquaintance with any object is accomplished through the medium of its effect, prabhava. Therefore, the symptoms, lakshana, providing acquaintance with an object are also called anubhavas. There are many things which by nature are not perceivable in and of themselves, but of which knowledge may be obtained by observing their effect, prabhava, or anubhava. Just as with fever, fever cannot be seen with the eyes, yet by the rise of temperature and other symptoms in the body, the existence of fever is known. Similarly, anger cannot be seen, but seeing the external transformations which are born from it, such as redness of the eyes and mouth, arousing of the voice, etc., anger is known. In the same way, Krishnarati or Bhakti is not something which can be perceived with the eyes. When Krishnarati makes its appearance within the heart, then gradually the one's formations or symptoms are manifested in the body of the devotees or in their behavior, by which it can be understood that Krishnarati is situated in their hearts. Therefore, these anubhavas of Krishnarati, or in other words that which manifests after the rise of Krishnarati, are called the illustrative symptoms, parikayak lakshana, of rati. Singing, dancing, and other symptoms as above mentioned are all anubhavas of bhakti rasa. The anubhavas such as dancing, singing, etc., are called udbasvara. Anubhavas are of two kinds, udbasvara and sattvika. The sattvika anubhavas, such as ashru, tears, pulaka, horripilation, kampa, tremor, etc., counted as 8 in all, will be described in the next wave. Ashru, pulaka, kampa, etc., may be considered as either sattvic bhavas or anubhavas of bhakti rasa, but the udbasvaras are not accepted as such. The reason is that there is ajutal difference between these two. Only those anubhavas which originate from sattva, goodness, are known as sattvic. But those anubhavas which, although originating from sattva, are connected with the intelligence, siddha, in other words which are given expression through the conscious effort of the will, are known as udbasvara. In the function of the sattvic anubhavas such as ashru, tears, pulak, horripilation, kampa, becoming stunned, etc., there is no contact with the intelligence, siddha. They spring up of their own accord. But in the case of the anubhavas such as dancing, singing, etc., they are given expression through the conscious endeavor of the will, in other words their manifestation takes place with the help of the intelligence. Therefore, it is said that the transformations of ecstasy, vikara, known as udbasvara generally manifest themselves externally. The sattvic transformations such as becoming stunned, horripilation, etc. are not manifest externally to the same extent as dancing, singing, etc. These anubhavas are of two types, 1, shita, cooling, and 2, keshapena, throwing or movement. Singing, yawning, etc. are shita anubhavas, whereas dancing, etc. are keshapena anubhavas. Notes: the word adya, etc., in Gita Dreambadaya, i.e. Gita, singing, Jairimba, yawning, etc., used above, should be understood to mean shvasbhuma, breathing heavily, lokanapeksha, neglecting others, and lalasrava, foaming of the mouth. Oozing of blood from the pores, swelling of the limbs, etc., as demonstrated by Lord Caitanya, are also accepted as shita anubhavas. In other words, singing, yawning, breathing heavily, neglecting of others and foaming of the mouth, these 5 are counted as shita anubhavas. Dancing, rolling on the ground, and the other remaining symptoms, these 8 together with mild smiling which has been previously described, are counted as keshapena anubhavas. The examples of all these anubhavas will be cited next. The following is an example of nrityam, dancing, seeing the moon-like face of Sri Krishna, showering nectar by the continuous manipulation of the sounds of his flute. Lord Shiva, trembling in ecstasy, began to dance in the sky, while playing on his damaru drum, accompanied by Gainsa and their followers. The following is an example of Viluthatam, rolling on the ground, taken from Srimad Bhagavatam, March 1, 32, Sri Vijaya after being insulted by Duryodhana and leaving Hastinapura, met with Sri Uddhava. After inquiring about the welfare of all others, he inquired in the following way regarding Sri Akrura, and how is the most intelligent, surrendered and unalloyed servant of the Lord, Sri Akrura faring? When he saw the dust along the footpaths of Bhimdevan marked with the lotus footprints of Sri Krishna, he was overwhelmed with love and began to roll on the ground. Another example of Vilahitamo Syamasundara. Sri Radha has become helpless, being controlled by the ever-new waves of increasing attachment, Navanuraga, toward you. She has been put into great difficulty, being intoxicated by the aroma of your garland of wild forest flowers. Thus she has been rolling on the ground in a courtyard of Braja, bruising her beautiful body. The following is an example of Jita, singing, O Gokulendra. Her mind submerged in the ocean of ever-fresh loving attachment, Navanuraga, toward you, Sri Radha, singing of your unprecedented transcendental qualities, has today caused the stones to melt out of ecstatic love and her friends to become stunned like stones. The following is an example of Kroshanam, loud airying, today Sri Naradaji being overwhelmed by the intense emotion of Hari Kirtan, cried so loudly that the demons, considering that Lord Nrsimhadev had appeared, began trembling and took to their heels. A second example of Kroshanam of Vrajarajanandana. Hearing the sound of your flute, Srimati Radharani has become so restless and unsteady that she is repeatedly crying very loudly just like a Karari bird. The following is an example of Tanu Motanam, writhing of the body, Sri Naradaji, playing on his veena, and singing again and again the name of Sri Krishna, became enraptured with such overwhelming emotion that his limbs began to contort and his sacred thread snapped. The following is an example of Hunkara, roaring, hearing the sound of Sri Krishna's flute, Lord Shiva's intelligence became completely disoriented and he began to roar so loudly in the sky that the dynasty of the demons became vanquished and the devotees experienced supreme spiritual bliss that appeared fresh at every moment. The following is an example of Jairimbanam, yawning, O Padmini, exceptionally beautiful Lady Radhika. In this forest of Kumudevan, upon the rising of the full moon, of Sri Krishna, your lotus face blossoms, into an expanding yawn. This is a most astonishing occurrence. Notes, in this verse the words Padmini, Kumudevan, and Jairimba are subject to different interpretations and are therefore literary embellishments known as Shilshalankara, a literary device in which words are used that may be subject to varied interpretation. The word Padmini may be understood to mean either a lotus flower or a heroine of exceptional beauty, Nayika. The word Kumudevan may be understood to mean the forest of lily flowers, Kumudevan, or the maintainer of the earth, Sri Krishna, and the word Jairimba may be interpreted either as blooming or yawning. In the above stated meaning, it is astonishing that the lotus face of Sri Radhika blooms upon seeing the full moon of Sri Krishna. When a lotus flower is exposed to the moon it closes. It does not bloom in the presence of the moon. Therefore it is astonishing that the face of Sri Radhika, which is compared to a lotus flower, blooms in the presence of the full moon, who is compared to Sri Krishna. In the second meaning, it is astonishing that when Padmini Nayika Sri Radhi comes in front of Sri Krishna she yawns. Therefore, in this verse, the literary embellishment in which there is use of astonishing and varied interpretation of words, Kamatkari Shilshalankara, is employed. The following is an example of Nishvas, breathing heavily, when the Lalita Kataka bird came into the presence of the Syamasundara cloud, who was appearing just like a silver screen by the multicolored array of his clothing, her thirst was magnified but on account of the violent whines in the form of her heavy sighing, the Krishna cloud was dispersed and thus she was severely agitated. Notes, in this verse Sri Lalita has been compared to the Kataka bird, Sri Krishna is compared to the cloud, and Lalita's breathing is compared to a violent storm. The Kataka bird drinks only the water from the rain of Svati Nakshatra, an auspicious constellation of stars. Its thirst is not quenched by seeing any other dark clouds and the rain water showering from them. Seeing the cloud in the form of Sri Krishna, the thirst of the Kataka bird in the form of Sri Lalita was awakened. But just as a cloud is dispersed by a violent wind, a violent storm in the form of Lalita's heavy breathing arose, by which the cloud of Sri Krishna was dispersed, and because her eyes filled up with tears, she could not obtain the vision of Sri Krishna. Therefore, remaining thirsty, she was severely agitated. The following is an example of Lokanapekshita, neglecting the presence of others, taken from Srimad Bhagavatam, 10.2341. Oh, just see the unbounded love of these women toward Jagat Guru Sri Krishna. It is so great that it has shattered the bonds of death known as household life. This verse was spoken by the Ajanic Brahmanas. An example of Lokanapekshita is also narrated in the Padyavala. No matter what worldly-minded persons may say, they are simply talkative. We shall not care a fig for them. Becoming intoxicated by drinking the liquor of Krishna Prema Rasa, we shall roll on the ground, dance, and enjoy transcendental bliss. The following is an example of Lilas Rava, foaming of the mouth. It seems that this Muni has been bitten by the snake of Krishna Prema, and is experiencing so much distress, that he is lying motionless and saliva is dripping from his mouth. The Anubhava known as Attahasa, loud laughing, arises from the heart of the devotee who is maddened with ecstatic love of Krishna. This Attahasa is quite different from ordinary laughter. The following is an example of Attahasa, loud laughter. It seems that the creeper of devotional service, Bhakti Lata, is blossoming in the heart of this devoted servant, Kinkara, of Sri Krishna, because from his face, collections of flowers in the form of loud laughter, are falling again and again. The following is an example of Gurna, staggering about. O friend Murali, the flute. It seems that Sri Krishna, the enemy of the Aga demon, by the trick of his blowing within you, has caused a whirlwind to enter within you. Otherwise, how is it that your reverberating sound has caused the lotus-eyed gopis of Braja to begin to reel about? The following is an example of hikha, a fit of hiccups. Purnamasi said, O daughter, why are you unnecessarily apprehending that some calamity has come to your dear most friend Sri Radha? There is no need of any medicine for this. Give up your impudent crying. O girl with the beautiful eyes, Varakshi. Being perturbed by the ecstatic transformations of love for Krishna, and calling out Hari Hari again and again, she is having a fit of hiccups. Thus far, examples of the 13 principal anubhavas have been given. Apart from the above-mentioned anubhavas, swelling of the body, hemorrhaging from the pores, and many other such symptoms of ecstasy, of which the author has described in his book known as Ajayjavala Nilamani, are also known as anubhavas. These are extremely rare and therefore, they have not been discussed further here. Thus ends the second wave of the southern division of Sri Bhakti Rasamrta Sindhu, entitled Anubhava. Third wave, Sattvika Bhava, when the heart or mind, Siddha, is overwhelmed with emotion, Bhava, indirect, Sikshit, relationship with Sri Krishna, or even with some slight hindrance, Vyavadan, learned persons call this condition Sattva. The bhava or emotion which arises from that sattva is called Sattvika Bhava. This Sattvika Bhava is of 3 varieties: 1. Snigdha, smooth; 2. Digdha, smeared; and 3. Ruksha, rough. Notes: Lt may first be said that Krishna Ratai is of 12 varieties, 5 principal, Mukhya Ratai, and 7 secondary, Gana Ratai, 1. Shanta, 2. Dajya, 3. Sakya, 4. Vatsalya and 5. Madhura are known as Mukhya Ratai. Hajya, laughter; 2. Karuna, compassion; 3. Adbhuta, astonishment; plus, Vira, chivalry; 5. Raudra, anger; 6. Bhayanika, dread; and 7. Vibhatsa, ghastliness, are known as Ganarati. When the mind, Siddha, is overwhelmed by emotions in relationship to the 5 principal mellows, Mukhya Ratai, then the emotion, Bhava, with which the mind is infused is understood to be in direct relation with Sri Krishna, and when the mind is overwhelmed with emotions in relationship to the 7 secondary mellows, Gana Ratai, then the ensuing emotion is said to be somewhat hindered, Vyavahit, or apart from Sri Krishna. When the mind is overwhelmed by Krishna Ratai, whether it be in a direct relationship or with some slight intervention, it is called sattva. The word sattva is a technical term. It does not refer to the material mode of goodness sattva guna. When the devotee has obtained the distinctive condition known as Krishna Ratai, and the mind is overwhelmed by that condition, or in other words by Krishna Ratai, then the mind is called sattva. In the previous wave a description was given of the anubhavas such as dancing, singing, etc. In reality, these anubhavas also arise from emotion, bhava, in relationship with Krishna, or in other words, when the mind is overwhelmed by emotion in relationship with Krishna. However, in dancing, singing, etc., because there is some exertion of the intelligence, siddha, these symptoms are called by the name udbhasvara. In the sattvika bhavas there is no exertion of the intelligence. They arise spontaneously, of their own accord. In these, the sattvika bhavas, there is no endeavor in accordance with desire to give expression to one's feelings, as is the case with dancing, singing, etc. Solely on account of arising from sattva are these known as sattvika bhavas. Next will be given examples describing the characteristics of the 3 varieties of sattvika bhavas, namely, snigdha, smooth, digdha, smeared, and ruksha, rough. Snigdha sattvika bhavas are of 2 varieties, 1, mukhya, principal, and 2, gana, secondary. When the mind is overwhelmed with emotion instigated by the principal mellows, mukhya ratai, of bhakti rasa, such as dajya, sakya etc., the sattvika bhavas which arise from that are known as mukhya snigdha sattvika bhavas. In these sattvika bhavas the emotion, bhava, which arises is understood by learned persons to be in a direct, sikshit, relationship with Sri Krishna. The following is an example of mukhya snigdha sattvika bhava Sri Radha, whose rows of teeth put to shame the buds of jasmine flowers, was weaving a garland of kunda, jasmine, flowers when, upon hearing the sweet sound of the flute, her entire body became stunned in ecstasy. This is an example of stamha, becoming stunned, which is classified as mukhya snigdha sattvika bhava, owing to its arising from madhura mukhya ratai. Svita, perspiration, and other sattvika bhavas should also be understood to be of the same classification. When the mind is overwhelmed by any emotion instigated by the secondary mellows, gana ratai, of bhakti rasa, such as laughter, wonder, etc., the sattvika bhavas arising from that are known as gana snigdha sattvika bhavas. In this case the emotion which arises is not in a direct relationship with Sri Krishna owing to the presence of some intervention or hindrance, vyavadan. The following is an example of gana snigdha sattvika bhava Gokulsvari Sri Yashodadevi is compared to the Kataka bird because she always thirsts for the cloud of Sri Krishna. When Purushottama Sri Krishna was first taken to Mathurapuri, Sri Yasodadevi, her face red with anger, began to condemn Vrajaraja Nanda Maharaja, so vehemently that her voice was faltering. This is an example of Vavarnya, pallor i.e. change of color, and Svarabhita, hoarseness faltering of the voice, which are classified as gana snigdha sattvika bhavas, owing to their arising from krodha, which is belonging to gana ratai, or the secondary mellows. In a devotee whose ratai is already established, the mind is sometimes possessed by emotion which is not instigated by either the principal or secondary mellows, mukhya or gana ratai, of bhakti rasa. The emotions which follow in the wake, anugamai, of that ratai are called digdha sattvika bhavas. The following is an example of digdha sattvika bhava. Once, at the end of night, Vrajsvari Sri Yashoda dreamt that Putana was lying on the ground in a most dreadfully fearful form. Upon seeing her, Sri Yashoda awoke trembling, Kampa, and her mind being very agitated, she began to search out her son Sri Krishna. In this example, the symptom which was manifest by Sri Yashoda of Kampa, trembling, follows in the wake of Ratai and is therefore called Digna Sattvika Bhava. Notes, in the above stated example, Sri Yashoda is already situated in her eternally established Ratai of Vatsalya, parental affection, towards Sri Krishna. Yet because she was sleeping, Krishna was not displayed before her and therefore at that time, the Vatsalya Ratai was not awakened. Seeing Putana in a dream, she became afraid on her own account. Krishna was not the subject of her fear, initially, because she did not remember Krishna in sleep. It may be understood from this that the Sattvika Bhava of Kampa, trembling, which arose in Yashodaji was instigated neither by Mukhya Ratai of Vatsalya nor by Gana Ratai of fear. In the beginning Sri Yashoda did not remember Krishna on account of being asleep. Seeing Putana in the dream, she became afraid on her own account and began to tremble. But because Yashoda's view is imbued with the Vatsalya Ratai, the fear which arose upon seeing Putana in the dream gave rise to feelings of fear in relationship to her son Sri Krishna as well. From this fear trembling arose in her. It is this Kampa which follows in the wake of Vatsalya Ratai. Only upon the awakening of the Vatsalya Ratai did Sri Yashoda begin to tremble out of fear of Putana on account of her son Sri Krishna. At that time she began to search for Sri Krishna. In other words, fear of Putana arose first, when Krishna was not manifest in her thoughts. Then on account of that fear her natural feelings of Vatsalya arose as a byproduct. Upon the arising of the Vatsalya sentiments, Kampa Sattvika Bhava became manifest. Because this trembling follows in the wake of Ratai it is called Digna Sattvika Bhava. It is occasionally observed in persons who are devoid of Ratai, Radishanya, that emotion arises, similar to that exhibited by devotees, by hearing the sweet and astonishing recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam. Such emotion is called Ruksha Sattvika Bhava. Sometimes materialistic persons, devoid of Ratai, may be engaged in the practice of sadhana. From such endeavor, a change occurs within the heart and they experience delight. At that time the hairs of their body stand on end. This standing of the hairs on end, Udpulaka or Romanka, is a kind of Sattvika Bhava. Learned scholars call such standing of the hairs on end, in persons who are devoid of Ratai, as Ruksha Sattvika Bhava. A description was previously given, First Division, Third Wave, texts 47 to 55, of Ratyabhasa in persons who aspire for liberation and other such persons. This is an example of Ruksha Sattvika Bhava. Notes, in text 12 the word Bhaktopama appears. Jiva Goswami has explained that this word means similar to devotees in whom Ratai is already established Gadarati Bhakta. Sri Visvanatha Chakravarti Thakur has explained it to mean similar to the Siddha Bhaktas. The purport of these statements is that those persons in whom Ruksha Sattvika Bhava arises are not factually situated in Ratai nor are they Siddha Bhaktas, in others words Ratai is not present in them. From the word Radishanya the same may be concluded. Therefore, there is no question of such persons being situated in Sattva, pure goodness. Sometimes Sattvika Bhavas such as tears and standing of the hairs on end may become visible in them but in reality these do not arise from Sattva. They arise solely on account of the bliss and wonder that result from hearing the sweet pastimes of Sri Krishna. There is not even a trace of Krishna Ratai in such persons. Therefore these symptoms are called Ruksha Sattvika Bhavas. Although these do not arise from Sattva, because they are similar to the Sattvika Bhavas in external appearance, they are also called Sattvika Bhavas. The manifestation of tears and horripilation seen in Sannyasis at the time of hearing and chanting about Sri Krishna, are only Ruksha Sattvika Bhavas, because Ratai is not present in them. Trembling, standing of the hairs on end, etc. arose in the Sannyasis who YMS Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu's pastime of delivering Sri Prakashananda Sarasvati. All these symptoms were but displays of Ruksha Sattvika Bhavas. The principal cause of the Sattvika Bhavas is when the mind is overpowered with emotion in relationship with Sri Krishna. When the mind is overpowered in this way it becomes severely agitated. But what kind of agitation is experienced by the mind is expressed externally in the form of stamha, becoming stunned, etc., manifested on the body of the devotee. In this connection it is said, upon the manifestation of the Sattvika bhavas, or in other words when the mind is overpowered with emotion in relation to Krishna, the mind becomes extremely restless. On account of this restlessness, the mind submits itself unto the vital air, prana. The vital air then also experiences transformations causing the body to become excessively agitated. At that time the Sattvika bhavas such as stamha, becoming stunned, etc. manifest themselves on the body of the devotee. The Sattvika bhavas are 8 in number: 1 stamha, becoming stunned; 2 svita, perspiration; 3 romancha, horripilation, standing of the hairs on end; 4 svarabhita, faltering of the voice; 5 kampa, trembling; 6 vaivarnya, pallor, change of color; 7 ashru, tears; and 8 pralaya, devastation. The vital air sometimes supports the 4 elements earth, water, fire and sky, and sometimes it acts independently, or in other words, taking shelter of the air, it begins to wander all over the body. When the vital air comes in contact with the earth, then stamha, becoming stunned, becomes manifest. When in contact with water, then ashru, tears, become manifest. When the vital force comes in contact with fire, svita, perspiration, and vaivarnya, pallor, are manifested. When in contact with the sky, pralaya, devastation, occurs. When the vital air acts independently, it gives rise to 3 gradations of Sattvika bhavas: mild, moderate and intense. The symptoms manifested in accordance with these 3 degrees of intensity are respectively, romanka, standing of the hairs on end; kampa, trembling; and svarabhita, faltering of the voice. All these Sattvika bhavas manifest themselves very clearly on the external body, and within, they give rise to great agitation of the emotions. Therefore, learned scholars refer to the Sattvika bhavas both as anubhavas, which manifest externally, and as bhavatva, emotionality or that which manifests internally. Stamha, becoming stunned, arises from the following emotions: harsa, jubilation; bhaya, fear; ashkarya, astonishment; vishad, despondency; and amarsha, anger. The following symptoms are manifested in stamha: there is loss of voice, immobility, suspension of the function of the working senses such as the hands and feet, and voidness, suspension of the function of the knowledge-acquiring senses. The following is an example of becoming stunned due to harsha, jubilation, in Srimad Bhagavatam, March 2, 14, Sri Uddhava said to Sri Vyadhira upon seeing the pastimes and affectionate smile of Sri Krishna laden with sentiment, rasa, the beautiful damsels of Braja felt greatly esteemed and became overwhelmed with jubilation, harsha. But upon Krishna's leaving them, their vision and intelligence followed along behind him. Dropping their household duties exactly as they were, they sat down without being able to move. The following is an example of becoming stunned due to bhaya, fear, when Devaki saw her son Sri Krishna, who is more dear to her than her own life, surrounded by the assembly of wrestlers who were built just like mountains, her eyes remained unwavering and her body became motionless. It is understood that this instance of becoming stunned, stamha, arising from fear on account of the existence of the Vatsalya Rati in Devaki, is a Sattvika bhava. The following is an example of becoming stunned due to ashkarya, astonishment. Sri Brahma, seeing Sri Krishna along with the calves and cowherd boys stolen by him, became struck with wonder at the majestic power of Sri Krishna, and all his senses were stunned in transcendental bliss. He remained silent, unable to speak even a single word. Just as statues are often established in front of the presiding deities of Braja, Lord Brahma stood motionless before Lord Krishna, just like a golden statue with 4 heads. A second example of becoming stunned due to ashkarya is given as follows: when the community of cowherders of Braja saw Sri Krishna holding sky-high Govardhana hill on his hand, they were struck with wonder and remained still just like painted pictures. The following is an example of stamha arising from vishada, dependency, When the demigods in the higher planetary system saw Sri Krishna enter into the belly of Aghasura, the brother of Bakasura, they were filled with despondency and became stunned exactly like dolls in a painting. The following is an example of stamha arising from amarsha, anger, seeing Asvatthama, the merciless son of Kripi, prepared to release his arrows at Sri Krishna who was standing before him, Arjuna, who bears the flag of Hanuman, and who is quick at cutting down the enemy, became stunned and remained unconscious for some time. When the mind is overwhelmed with emotion in relationship to Krishna and the body begins to perspire, such a symptom is called svita sattvika bhava. This svita, perspiration, arises from harsha, jubilation, bhaya, fear, and krodha, anger. Tatra harshityatha. The following is an example of svita arising from harsha, jubilation, seeing Sri Krishna, Sri Radhika became soaked with perspiration. But in order to conceal the reason for this, she began to condemn the sun, making it appear as though her perspiration was due to the heat of the sun. Seeing this, one Sakha spoke as follows, O girl with the charming eyes Radhi. Why are you cleverly condemning the rays of the sun? One can understand that upon seeing the lotus-eyed Sri Krishna standing before you, you have become afflicted with Cupid's flower arrows and thus you are perspiring heavily. The following is an example of svita arising from bhaya, fear. One day, just to amuse himself, Sri Krishna adopted the dress of Abhimanyu. Seeing him dressed in this way, Sri Krishna's servant Raktika rebuked him very severely. Later, when he came to understand that it was Sri Krishna, his mind became very perturbed and for some time, he was soaked in perspiration. Notes, in text 30, a gopa by the name of Abhimanyu is described. In his commentary on this text, Rupa Goswami explains that by the influence of Yogamaya, Abhimanyu thinks himself to be the husband of Sri Radha. Yogamaya manufactured a duplicate of Sri Radha who remains with him. This is indicated in the following verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, 10-33-37, the cowherd men, bewildered by Krishna's illusory potency, thought their wives had remained home at their sides. Thus they did not harbor any jealous feelings against him. This Abhimanyu, the so-called husband of Sri Radha, is also a construction of Yogamaya. When Raktika saw Krishna in the dress of Abhimanyu he became angry and rebuked him. When he later understood that it was his master Sri Krishna, he became soaked with perspiration due to fear. The following is an example of svita arising from krodha, anger, seeing Indra showering torrents of rain on the inhabitants of Braja on account of their abandoning the Indra Yama, Garuda, who was situated above the clouds, became very angry and began to perspire. The sattvika bhava known as romanka, standing of the hairs on end, arises from ashkarya, astonishment, harsha, jubilation, utsaha, enthusiasm, and bhaya, fear, caused by dealings in relationship to Krishna's pastimes. Romanka is characterized by the standing of the hairs on end, a feeling in the limbs as if they were touching something. The following is an example of romanka arising from askarya, astonishment. One's child Krishna opened his mouth widely while yawning. Sri Yashoda, the wife of Nanda Maharaja, seeing the three worlds in his mouth, was struck with wonder and the hairs of her body stood on end. The following is an example of romanka arising from harsha, jubilation. When Sri Krishna disappeared from the rasa dance, the gopis were searching for him from forest to forest. Seeing the smooth grass sprouted from the earth, they believed the earth to be exhibiting symptoms of ecstatic horripilation, romanka, and inquired as follows, O Mother Earth, what austerity did you perform to attain the touch of Lord Keshvara's lotus feet, which has brought you such great joy that your bodily hairs are standing on end? You appear very beautiful in this condition. Was it during the Lord's current appearance that you acquired this ecstatic symptom, or was it perhaps much earlier, when he stepped upon you in his form of the dwarf Vamanadeva, or even earlier, when he embraced you in his form of the boar Varahadeva? The following is an example of romanka arising from utsaha, enthusiasm. When Sridham, who was eager to engage in fighting, heard the buffalo horn of Sri Krishna, the annihilator of sins, announcing the beginning of the fighting sports, his body became decorated with ecstatic horripilation. The following is an example of Romanka arising from Bhaya, fear, seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead Sri Krishna standing before him in his astonishing feature as the universal form. Sri Arjuna's face dried up and the hairs of his body stood on end. Upon the arising of Vishada, despondency, Vismaya, wonder, Krodha, anger, Harsha, jubilation, and Bhaya, fear, in endeavors that are connected to Krishna, the Sattvika bhava known as Svarabhita, hoarseness or faltering of the voice, becomes manifest. The symptom of Svarabhita is characterized by the faltering of the voice. The following is an example of Svarabhita arising from Vishada, despondency, at the time of the departure to Mathura, when Sri Krishna climbed upon the chariot of Akrura, Srimati Radharani abandoned all modesty in front of Sri Yashoda and the other elders and spoke as follows, O Vrajarajani, Sri Yashoda. You yourself, from the chariot where Sri Hari stands before you. Her voice faltering out of great lamentation, Srimati Radharani was only able to speak this much. Seeing this situation, all of her dear friends, Priya Sakais, began to cry. The following is an example of Svarabhita arising from Vismaya, wonder, as described in Srimad Bhagavatam, October 13, 64, in regards to the Brahma Vimohan Lila, Brahmaji, after offering prostrated obeisances unto Lord Krishna, rose slowly, wiped his eyes and with a lowered head, he gazed upon Sri Krishna. Summoning all of his concentration, his hands folded in humility, trembling and with a faltering voice, he haltingly began to offer prayers to the Lord. In this instance, Brahmaji's manifestation of the Sattvika bhava known as Svarabhita, faltering of the voice, is caused by wonder on account of seeing the astonishing sweetness of Sri Krishna. The following is an example of Svarabhita instigated by Amarsha, anger, as described in Srimad Bhagavatam, 10/29730, on the night of Rasa, hearing the sound of Sri Krishna's flute, all the young gopis of Vraja abandoned kith and kin and arrived by Krishna's side. Krishna then began to tell them they should return home. Describing the scene at that time, Sukadeva Goswami spoke as follows. My dear Maharaja Pariksit. The gopis were extremely attached to Sri Krishna. They had renounced all other interests and were exclusively devoted unto him. They were also very dear to Sri Krishna. However, when they heard such unpleasant words from the mouth of Sri Krishna, their eyes became practically blind from continuous crying. Wiping their eyes and being somewhat angry, they began to speak with faltering voices. The following is an example of Svarabhita arising from Harsha, jubilation, as described in Srimad Bhagavatam, 10/39/56-57, see when Akrura was taking Krishna and Balarama to Mathura, he stopped and got down from the chariot along the way in order to take bath in the Yamuna. Akrura saw that Krishna and Balarama were also in the Yamuna and at that time he witnessed their multifarious opulence. At that time the hairs of his body stood on end, his body became soaked with perspiration due to intense emotion and his eyes were flooded with tears. Our very own Sri Krishna is the Supreme Lord. Understanding this, Akrura, filled with great affection, bowed in reverence toward the Lord, made prostrated obeisances, and with folded hands and a faltering voice, he began to offer prayers from pure goodness. The following is an example of Svarabhita arising from Bhaya, fear, one friend said to Sri Krishna, O friend. I said to your servant Patri, please return the flute which had given you. Hearing me speak these words, his complexion faded, his throat became choked and he began to speak in a faltering voice. Therefore, O Mukunda, your flute has been lost due to the carelessness of that Patri. When there is trembling in the body due to vitrasa, fear, amarsha, anger, or harsha, jubilation, such a condition is called vipathu or kampa, trembling. The following is an example of vipathu, trembling, arising from vitrasa, fear, once when Sri Krishna was enjoying sportive pastimes with Sri Radha and the other Sakais, Shankacuta came there. Stretching out his hands, he lifted Sri Radhaj and began to make off with her. Then seeing the great audacity of Shankacuta as he spread his hands to steal her away, Sri Radha cried out, "O Vrayendranandana!" Saying only this much, she began to tremble fiercely. The following is an example of kampa arising from amarsha, anger, upon hearing the blasphemy of Sri Krishna by Sisupala, Sadadeva, the younger brother of Nakula, his mind greatly perturbed, became insolent with anger. At that time he began to tremble exactly as a mountain becomes tremulous during an earthquake. The following is an example of kampa arising from harsha, jubilation, once Sri Radha began to tremble with ecstatic bliss upon seeing Sri Krishna. Seeing this, one of her Sakhis began to joke with her. Sri Radha thus spoke to her Sakhi. "O Hatashe! Why are you joking with me? Can't you see that today I am trembling from fear?" In order to hide her true feelings, Srimati Radharani said that she was trembling due to fear instead of from the bliss of seeing Sri Krishna. Don't go near this restless son of the king of Braja, Vrayendranandana. When there is pallor, or a change of color arising from vishad, despondency, krodha, anger, or bhaya, fear, such a condition is known as vaivarnya. Learned scholars in the science of discerning emotions say that when there is change of color, one also appears gloomy, malign, and emaciated, krisha. The following is an example of vaivarnya arising from vishad, despondency, O Krishna. Due to separation from you, all the residents of Gokula have turned white, their color having faded. Therefore, Devarshi Narada has mistaken Gokula for Svetadvipa. The following is an example of vaivarnya arising from rasha, indignation or anger, after the death of Kamsa, when his brothers Kanka, Nyagradha, etc. came to fight with Krishna, the city women observing the scene, began to speak among themselves as follows, O friend! Just see the brothers of Kamsa coming forward wielding weapons to fight with Sri Krishna. Just see the face of Sri Baladeva, red with anger, just as the rising of the full moon is decorated with a reddish hue. The following is an example of vaivarnya arising from bhita, fear, upon learning that Sri Krishna had easily lifted Govardhana, the king of mountains, in order to protect the land of Braja. Indra's face turned black, intimating at the fear which had arisen in his mind. When there is change of color, vaivamaya, arising from vishada, despondency, then the complexion sometimes becomes whitish, sometimes dust-colored and sometimes blackish. When there is a change of color due to rasha, anger, the complexion becomes reddish, and when there is change of color arising from fear, the complexion sometimes becomes blackish and sometimes whitish. When there is a change of color arising from excessive jubilation, harsha, the complexion becomes very distinctly reddish. However, since this is not observed in all cases, no example has been given here. When, due to harsha, jubilation, krodha, anger, or vishada, despondency, the eyes become filled with tears without any effort, such a condition is called ashru. Tears arising from jubilation are cold, whereas tears arising from anger are hot. In all the varieties, mentioned above, of the sattvika bhava known as ashru, there is restlessness of the eyes, redness, and constant rubbing of the eyes. Running of the nose is also a characteristic part of ashru. The following is an example of ashru arising from harsha, jubilation, when lotus-eyed Rukmani's vision of Sri Govinda was obstructed due to the rain of tears arising from jubilation, she began to severely condemn such jubilation, ananda. Notes, in this example, it is not ananda which is condemned, since by nature, ananda is not something which is to be condemned. 'Tis the constant wiping of the eyes, which are filled with tears on account of ananda, which is condemnable. From the bliss of seeing Krishna so many tears began to flow that Rukmani's vision of Krishna became obstructed. Therefore, in this instance it is only the tears arisen from excessive bliss and which presented an obstacle in seeing Krishna which is condemned. In Jiva Goswami's Durgama Sangamani commentary on this verse, a statement of Naya, logic, has been partially cited. Sripad Visvanatha Chakravarti, in his commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam, text 11/30/1, has cited the same reference in full, say Visheshain hi vidinishadhau visheshanamupasantramata sati visheshyabhati. In other words, in the application of rules with reference to nouns and their qualifying adjectives, if the application of that rule with the noun is negated, then the authority of that rule is transferred to the adjective. In this verse the noun is anandam. The relationship of the verb anandat, past tense of 9 to condemn, with the noun anandam is prohibited, since by nature ananda is not something which is condemnable. Therefore, it should be accepted here that the verb anandat is related to the adjective vashpaparabhimarshinam, rubbing of the eyes due to constant crying, and not to the noun ananda. The purport of these statements is that the tears presented an obstacle in seeing Krishna, and it is that which is condemnable, not ananda. The following is an example of ashru arising from rasha, anger, as stated in Hayavam Sadhu to the fury of love, a stream of tears, just like drops of mist, began to flow from the lotus-like eyes of Satyabhama. A second example of ashru arising from anger is given as follows: when Bhimasena was ready to kill Sisupala, his face became red with anger and his eyes filled up with tears. At that time it appeared that his face was being decorated, just as the moon, rising in the evening sky, is decorated by a reddish hue and by drops of water. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10/60/23, the following example is given of ashru arising from visheta, despondency. Once Sri Krishna, joking with Rukmini, spoke in such a way that was very unpleasant for her. Krishna said, "O Rukmini, you made a great mistake by selecting me as your husband, leaving aside Sisupala and all the other heroic kings. Being that I am a desireless individual, you may now go wherever you like." The condition which was experienced by Rukmini upon hearing this statement is described in the above verse. Hearing the statement of Sri Krishna, Rukmini began to dig up the earth with the gracefully decorated red nails of her soft lotus feet. Her breasts, which were nicely adorned with kumkum powder, became consecrated with the blackish tears falling from her kaliridam anointed eyes. Her throat became coked up and she cast her glance downward. When all activity, shta, is arrested and one loses consciousness, jnana, due to happiness or tribulation, such a condition is called pralaya, devastation, or murka, fainting or swoon. Notes: in the state of pralaya, because the asraya alambana vibhava, in other words the individual in whom love is reposed, becomes merged in Sri Krishna, there is a deficiency in activity, shta, and consciousness, jnana. Because the totality of the mind becomes merged in Sri Krishna, the mental faculties become devoid of activity and therefore any kind of memory or consciousness also becomes lost. The symptoms of the sattvika bhava known as stamha, becoming stunned, resemble those mentioned here. The distinction between the two is that in stamha, the function of the knowledge-acquiring senses is suspended but the mind continues to function. But in murka, fainting, the function of the mind is also lost. This is due only to its becoming merged in Sri Krishna. The following is an example of pralaya arising from sukha, happiness. Suddenly, Sri Krishna emerged from the thicket of creepers and came towards one particular gopi in order to meet with her. Seeing this, she became completely motionless and fell unconscious. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10/35/15, the following example is given of pralaya arising from dukkha, distress. See, when the gopis learned that Akrura had come in order to take Sri Krishna to Mathura, many of the sattvika bhavas arose in them simultaneously. The gopis were so deeply absorbed in meditation upon Sri Krishna that all the functions of their senses became completely suspended. They had given up all interest in the things of this world, so much so that they lost consciousness of their own bodies. Their condition was exactly like the state of liberated persons absorbed in samadhi. Even though both the anubhavas such as dancing, etc., which are known as udbasvara, and the sattvika bhavas such as becoming stunned etc. arise from sattva and are therefore emotions arising from unadulterated goodness, sattvika bhava, The sattvika bhavas alone are termed as such because they arise purely from goodness without any application of the intelligence. The vital air and the body become agitated in accordance with the degree of sattva. Therefore there are degrees of intensity of all the sattvika bhavas. Notes: svita, perspiration, stamha, becoming stunned, etc. alone are known as sattvika bhavas. Yet there are conditions under which these very same symptoms cannot be accepted as sattvika bhavas. Tears, trembling, horripilation and fainting are apparently present in worldly-minded persons arising from extreme happiness, distress, anger, fear etc. in connection with the practical subjects of this material world. However, these are not sattvika bhavas. Only those symptoms which arise from sattva, in other words, only those symptoms which arise when the mind is overpowered with emotion in relationship with Krishna, are called sattvika bhavas. Nritya, dancing, vilahita, rolling on the ground, etc., also arise only from sattva, but because in those movements there is application of the intelligence they are not called sattvika bhavas. They are known as udbhasvara. Certainly these, dancing etc., arise on the basis of sravana, kirtan etc., but in the case of the sattvika bhavas, the various practices of bhajana are not the exclusive foundation giving rise to those symptoms. By the degree of sattva, mentioned in the verse above, is implied the degree to which the mind is overpowered by emotions in relationship to Krishna. In other words, the intensity of the emotions being overpowered is called the degree of sattva. The degree of agitation of the vital air and body corresponds to the degree to which the emotions are overpowered. Therefore, the extent to which the overpowering of the mind by emotions in relationship with Krishna is developed, determines the degree of radiance in the expression of the sattvika bhavas. Accordingly, 4 grades or characteristic features of each of the sattvika bhavas are described ahead. Progressively increasing sattvika bhavas are of 4 types: 1. Dhumayita, smoldering; 2. Jaivalita, flaming; 3. Dipta, burning; and 4. Udipta, brightly burning. The increase in radiance in the manifestation of the sattvika bhavas is herein likened unto the degree of radiance of the flames in burning wood. This increase in radiance is measured according to 3 different criteria: 1. The length of time for which the symptoms manifest, Burikala Vyapi; 2. The degree to which the symptoms pervade the limbs of the body, Bhavanga Vyapi; and 3. The extent to which the particular nature of the sattvika bhavas are manifest, Svarupina Utkarsha. Translator's note: there are 3 criteria by which the intensity of the sattvika bhavas may be measured. If we take the example of kampa, trembling, the first criteria is how long the trembling lasts for. The second criteria is the extent to which that trembling is spread to different parts of the body, and the third criteria is the intensity of the trembling in any or all parts of the body. According to the radiance of the sattvika bhava, as measured by the above-mentioned criteria, and its combination with other sattvika bhavas, the ecstatic symptoms exhibited are classified in 4 categories as described ahead. Apart from tears and faltering of the voice, all the other sattvika bhavas are spread throughout the body. Tears and faltering of the voice have certain specialized features. The shedding of tears cause the eyes to become swollen and whitish and the pupils to take on a peculiar appearance. These are the specialized features of ashru. When there is faltering of the voice, because of the difference, binatva, in tone, the throat becomes choked, kunthya, and the voice becomes perturbed, vyakulata. By difference, binatva, in tone, it is implied that the voice becomes faded, sthanavibramsha, in other words, it appears as if the words are rumbling from the throat. By bluntess, kunthya, it is implied that the throat becomes choked and thus any sound is able to come out from the throat. By perturbation, vyakulata, it should be understood that the voice fluctuates, being sometimes high, sometimes low, sometimes hidden, and sometimes vanished. All sattvika bhavas which are classified as ruksha, dried up, generally manifest only in the stage known as dhumayita, smoldering. The sattvika bhavas which are classified as snigdha, soft, generally are of 4 varieties: 1. Dhumayita, smoldering; Jaivalita, flaming; Dipta, burning; and Udipta, brightly burning. Sometimes during religious festivals, when there is dancing in the association of devotees, Sattvika bhavas which are classified as Ruksha may rise to the stage of Jaivalita, flaming. Attachment, Rati, for Krishna alone is the cause of joyous astonishment. Therefore, Rati is the topmost emotion. Without Rati, the Ruksha Sattvika bhavas cannot be the basis of astonishment. The stages of manifestation of the Sattvika bhavas, Dhumayita, etc., will be described next, in detail along with examples. That Sattvika bhava which manifests in a very small quantity either by itself or combined with another Sattvika bhava and which is capable of being hidden, by the devotee, is called Dhumayita, smoldering. Notes: when stamha, becoming stunned, alone is very slightly manifest, or when other symptoms such as tears, trembling etc. manifest along with it, and when the devotee is able to hide those symptoms, then it is called Dhumayita bhava. Because the symptoms are manifest only to a small extent in the Dhumayita stage, the devotee is able to conceal them. But when the symptoms manifest to a great extent, the devotee is not able to conceal them. The following is an example of Sattvika bhava manifested in the Dhumayita stage when the sacrificial priest heard the glories of Sri Krishna, which destroy all sins. A few tears began to fill his eyelids, the hairs on his cheeks were slightly raised and some perspiration appeared on his nose. In this way his lotus face bloomed to a slight extent, being decorated with various symptoms of ecstasy, Sattvika bhavas. Notes: in this example, Ashra, tears, Romanka, horripilation, and Svita, perspiration, arose simultaneously in the priest, but only to a very slight extent. Tears arose only in his eyelids, horripilation occurred only on his cheeks and perspiration appeared only on his nose. Therefore, this is an instance of Dhumayita bhava. If 2 or 3 Sattvika bhavas manifest prominently at the same time, and if they can be concealed only with great difficulty, this condition is called Jaivalit, flaming. The following is an example of Sattvika bhavas being manifest in the Jaivalit stage, flaming. A cowherd boy said to Sri Krishna, "O friend, when I heard the sound of your flute from within the forest, my hands began to tremble and therefore one was immediately unable to grasp the gunja berries. On account of the tears which filled my eyes, could not recognize the peacock tail, and my thighs became so stunned that I could not move a single step." Notes: in his commentary on this verse, Srila Rupa Goswami explains the significance of the word Satvarakriti. Satvara means very speedily and kriti means work or deed. The verse says that on account of his trembling, the cowherd boy was very quickly unable to grasp the gunja berries. This implies that after some time, he was again able to do so. In other words, with a significant endeavor, he was able to conceal his trembling. Therefore, this is accepted as an instance of Jaivalit bhava. A second example of Jaivalit Sattvika bhava is given as follows: O Sakya, when I heard the sound of Krishna's flute in the foothills of the mountain, I was able to stop my tears with great difficulty. Feeling ashamed, one was somehow or other able to conceal my choked voice also. But I was unable to stop the trembling of my body. Therefore all of my clever friends could easily detect the attachment for Sri Krishna that was present within my mind. When 3, 4, or 5 Sattvika bhavas manifest very powerfully at the same time and when it is not possible to suppress such expressions, this condition is known as Dipta Sattvika bhava. The following is an example of Sattvika bhavas being manifest in the Dipta, burning, stage. Seeing Sri Krishna before him, Narada Muni became so helpless that from the trembling in his limbs, he was unable to play his veena. Because of the faltering of his voice, he was unable to offer prayers to the Supreme Lord. And due to the uninterrupted flow of tears from his eyes, his vision of Sri Krishna was impaired. A second example of Dipta Sattvika bhava is given as follows: when Sri Radha heard the sound of Sri Krishna's flute, her condition was such that, upon seeing her, a friend spoke to her as follows: O friend. Of what use is it to accuse the flower pollens for the stream of tears flowing from your eyes? Why are you uselessly becoming angry at the cold air on account of the trembling which has arisen in your body? What is the point in your trying to attribute the stunned condition of your limbs to your wanderings in the forest? How many excuses will you not make, O Radhi? The faltering of your voice has been brought about by the ache of Cupid, Madana. In this instance, the bhava of Sri Radha is so intense that she is unable to suppress any of its symptoms. When 5 or 6, or even all 8 of the sattvika bhavas manifest simultaneously and attain supreme exaltation, this condition is called Udipta sattvika bhava. The following is an example of Udipta sattvika bhava. O Pitambara, Krishna who wears a yellow cloth. Today all the residents of Gokula are trembling and perspiring due to separation from you. They are remaining stunned with the hairs of their bodies standing on end. Being very perturbed, they are lamenting with voices full of anguish. On account of extreme grief they are withering away. They are becoming soaked from the flow of plump tears falling from their eyes like clusters, and they are swooning very powerfully again and again. In the condition known as Mahabhava, in other words in the Krishnaratai of the gopis of Vraja, all the sattvika bhavas reach the summit of expression, being extremely bright in their radiance. Such a state is called Sudipta, blazing. This condition of Mahabhava is not to be found in anyone other than the gopis of Vraja. Therefore, only in them is the condition known as Sudipta observable. 4 kinds of sattvika bhava abhasa will now be described. Jiva Goswami explains in his commentary that in actuality these are not sattvika bhavas, but because they resemble the sattvika bhavas, they are called sattvika bhava abhasa. The 4 kinds of sattvika bhava abhasa are as follows: 1. Ratyabhasa bhava, that which arises from an abhasa of rati. 2. Sattvabhasa bhava, that which arises from an abhasa of sattva. 3. Nisattva, that which does not arise from sattva. And 4. Pratipha, that which arises in persons who are averse to Krishna. Of these 4 kinds of sattvika bhava abhasa, ratyabhasa is the best and the others are successively inferior in quality. What was previously described, in text January 3, 45, as ratyabhasa bhava, existing in those who are desirous of liberation, etc., is also known as sattvika abhasa. The following is an example of sattvika abhasa. It is sometimes observed amongst the assembly of sannyasis in Varanasi, that certain symptoms of ecstasy may become manifested in an individual upon hearing the songs glorifying the activities of Lord Hari. Such an individual may manifest horripilation and tears. These symptoms are known as sattvika abhasa. Notes: those who are desirous of liberation generally live in Varanasi. This was the custom in ancient times. The sannyasis residing there are called mumukshus, those desirous of liberation. When Jnanis and yogis are desirous of liberation, then during their practice of sadhana, it is possible that they may undertake certain limbs of bhakti. At that time some emotion may accidentally manifest in them. Although they may execute certain items of devotional service, bhakti or Krishnaratai is not desired by them. At the time of chanting the holy name or hearing the narrations of Lord Hari, they may sometimes manifest horripilation, tears, and other symptoms. It is accepted that these symptoms, known as sattvika abhasa, the semblance of sattvika bhava, are produced from rati abhasa, the semblance of rati. These symptoms are not accepted as real rati or real sattva. They are a mere shadow of rati or sattvika bhava. It may also be understood from this that if by the influence of anything related to Krishna, tears, trembling, etc. arise, these also are merely sattvika abhasa. In persons whose hearts are naturally weak, shidhila, or soft, komal, an abhasa of jubilation, wonder, etc. sometimes arises, and this is known as sattvabhasa. Symptoms such as horripilation, tears, etc., arising subsequently from that abhasa of sattva, are called sattva abhasa bhava sattvika abhasa arising from sattva abhasa. The following is an example of sattva abhasa. Sometimes while repeatedly hearing of the transcendental appearance and activities of Sri Krishna, Mimamsaka philosophers, who are devoid of bhakti, may experience some delight within the mind which gives rise to symptoms in the body such as horripilation. Translator's note: the example given here, of Mimamsaka philosophers, is just to show that such symptoms may manifest even in non-devotees. Srila Prabhupada explains that in actuality the hearts of such persons are not melted. They are hard-hearted. But the influence of the glories of the Lord is so great that even the non-devotees sometimes shed tears. A second example of sattva abhasa is given as follows: how can describe the extraordinary sweetness, or your ingenious statements which cause to fall, the rain of nectar in the form of the glorification of the activities of Sri Mukunda. Hearing the triumph of Sri Krishna from your mouth, even persons who are ordinarily without relationship to such speeches and who are ensnared in material sense gratification, become filled with love and tears flow from their eyes. In this example the tears are satvikabhasa because persons whose minds are attached to material sense enjoyment are devoid of rati for Sri Krishna. Notes: in the hearts of those persons who from birth are soft-hearted, an abhasa of harsha, jubilation, vismaya, wonder, etc. may arise upon hearing any topics connected to Sri Krishna. This condition is called sattvabhasa. In the heart of those devotees in whom rati is already established, harsha, jubilation, vismaya, wonder, etc., arise from emotions related to Krishna. The heart which is overpowered by such feelings, jubilation, etc., is called sattva, and the heart which is overcome by emotion, bhava, related to Krishna is also called sattva. In those instances where jubilation, wonder, etc. do not arise from sattva, in other words when such feelings arise in persons in whom rati is not already established, they are merely an abhasa. When the heart is overpowered by that abhasa, it is called sattvabhasa. Because it increases the duration of life, ayu, gi is called ayu. Similarly, because it gives rise to sattvabhasa, the abhasa of jubilation, wonder, it is called sattvabhasa. Symptoms of ecstasy such as tears, horripilation, it, which arise from that sattvabhasa are called sattvabhasa bhava satvikabhasa. In satvikabhasa also there is the requirement of things in relationship with Krishna such as hearing the pastimes of Sri Krishna. There are persons whose hearts are naturally slippery, pikhila, and who practice tears, trembling, etc., but who are devoid of even the abhasa of sattva as described above. Such tears, horripilation, etc., which are sometimes observed in them are called nisattva satvikabhasa, sattvika abhasa which is devoid of sattva. The following is an example of nisattva satvikabhasa in the heart of this person, who is hearing the narrations of Lord Hari without concentration. The emotions of happiness and distress are not arising. Who then can understand how it is that an uninterrupted stream of tears is flowing from his eyes? Persons whose minds are soft and slippery generally manifest such symptoms known as satvikabhasa during festivals when there is performance of kirtan in a large assembly. Notes: in satvikabhasa which has arisen from an abhasa of sattva the heart is described as being shlatha, weak, and here the heart is described as being pikhila, slippery. The heart which is described as slatha, weak, is soft both externally and internally. The heart which is pikhila, slippery, is soft externally but internally it is very hard. The meaning of pikhila is that which is slippery. A person who walks upon a slippery area does not fall every time but only upon certain specific places. Similarly, it is not that every time a slippery-hearted person hears narrations of Sri Krishna that tears, horripilation, etc. will arise, but only on some occasional basis. But in those whose hearts are slatha, soft, or in other words who are by nature very sentimental, tears, horripilation, etc., will arise every time they hear Krishna Katha. Those symptoms which arise neither from sattva, nor from an abhasa of sattva and which have no touch of harsha, jubilation, vismaya, wonder, etc. either externally or internally, are therefore called nisattva satvikabhasa. Some persons practice exhibiting crying, trembling, etc., for the entertainment of others or in other words to make a display of their so-called love. Nisattva is therefore called Satvikabhasa only because ignorant persons consider it to be just like the actual manifestation of Satvikabhavas. For this reason it is described in context of Satvikabhasa. Nisattva is inferior to Sattvabhasa Satvikabhasa. Those whose hearts are Shidhila, soft or weak, manifest symptoms of Satvikabhasa even without being in a festival in which kirtan is being conducted in a large assembly. However, those whose hearts are Pikhila, slippery, manifest such symptoms only in such large gatherings. When the enemies of Krishna experience change in bodily color, Vaivarnya, etc., as a result of fear, anger, etc., such symptoms are called Pratipa Satvikabhasa. The following is an example of Pratipa Satvikabhasa arising out of anger, as stated in the Hayavamsa. Due to feelings of great anger towards Sri Krishna, Kamsa's upper lip was quivering, and his lower lip was becoming red. Thus his whole face became as red as the Sunday. Bayanayatha. The following is an example of Pratipa Satvikabhasa arising from fear. Seeing Sri Krishna in the amphitheatre, the face of the wrestler became faded, and on his forehead drops of perspiration appeared. It was as if the drops of perspiration were pearls in the form of the anticipation of Libertian, after being killed by the Lord, appearing within the oyster shell of his forehead. With these pearls he was respectfully offering worship to the lotus feet of the Lord. The Vaivarnmaya, change of color, and Svita, perspiration, which arose here in an enemy of Krishna due to fear, are called Pratipa Satvikabhasa. Pratipa Satvikabhasa is exhibited by those who are possessed of the temperament of being opposed to Krishna, Virahibhava. In Nisattva Satvikabhasa there is no such sentiment. Therefore Pratipa is inferior to Nisattva Satvikabhasa. Notes: in this text there is a pun on the use of the word muddy. Muddy means liberation as well as pearl. Therefore the drops of perspiration which are compared to pearls, also refer to muddy or liberation which the wrestler was anticipating upon being killed by Sri Krishna. A second example of Pratipa Satvikabhasa arising from fear is as follows. Upon hearing a recitation from the Bhagavat Purana of Kamsa's pride being pulverized, great turmoil arose within the heart of one enemy of Sri Krishna and his face became gloomy. The author says that although there is no need to mention the varieties of Satvikabhasa, the description has been given here just to clarify the position of the Satvikabhavas. The import of this statement is that the symptoms of ashru, tears, pulaka, horripilation, etc., are not always taken to be Satvikabhavas. Therefore, the imitative symptoms of Satvikabhasa have been described in context of the genuine symptoms of the Satvikabhavas. Thus ends the third wave of the Southern division of Sri Bhakti Rasamrta Sindhu, entitled Satvikabhava. Fourth wave, Vyabhikaribhava. After the description of the Satvikabhavas, there is a description of 33 Vyabhikaribhavas. Movement or variation which is specifically directed toward the Sthayi bhava is called Vyabhikaribhava. The manifestation of these emotions is intimated at or understood, through one's words, through the limbs, eyes, eyebrows, etc., and through sattva, or in other words, through the anubhavas arisen from sattva. All these Vyabhikaribhavas move, sankarit, the condition of the emotions. Therefore, they are also called sankari, which moves, bhavas. These Vyabhikaribhavas emerge and submerge in the nectar ocean in the form of the Sthayi bhava. They increase and enlarge the Sthayi bhava just like waves and then again merge into the Sthayi bhava. Just as waves rise up from the ocean and then expand the ocean, the Vyabhikaribhavas arise from the Sthayi bhava and then enhance the Sthayi bhava. And as the waves arisen from the ocean merge back into the ocean, and become one with the ocean, the Vyabhikaribhavas arisen from the Sthayi bhava, merge back into the Sthayi bhava and become one with the Sthayi bhava. Notes: the general meaning of the word Vyabhikara is debauchery, misbehavior, or depravity. Accordingly, a person who is attached to such behavior is called a Vyabhikari, debauchee. But here, the word Vyabhikari is not connected with the general meaning given in the dictionary. The word Vyabhikari here has a special technical meaning. It can be broken down into three parts: 6, opposing or intensifying, abhi, towards, and carry, going. In other words, an emotion which moves particularly in the direct ion of the staya bhava is called vyabhikara. It arises from the staya bhava, increases the staya bhava and then merges back into the staya bhava. It has no connection with anything apart from the staya bhava. The description of the staya bhavas is related in detail in the next wave. Here it is sufficient to know that Krishna Ratai is called staya bhava. Therefore, that emotion which arises from Krishna Ratai, enlarges it and then merges back into it, is called vyabhikara bhava. Because it moves, sankarit, the condition of the emotions, it is also called sanchari, which moves, bhava. There are 33 vyabhikara bhavas as follows: 1. Nirvida, self-disparagement; 2. Vishada, despondency; 3. Dainya, depression; 4. Glani, debility; 5. Shrama, fatigue; 6. Mada, intoxication; 7. Garva, pride; 8. Shanka, doubt; 9. Trisa, fear; 10. Avaga, agitation; 11. Unmata, madness; 12. Apasamrti, forgetfulness or hysteric convulsions; 13. Vyadi, disease; 14. Moha, confusion or fainting; 15. Mrti, death; 16. Alasia, laziness; 17. Jadyaja, inertness; 18. Brita, shame; 19. Avahitya, concealment of emotions; 20. Samriti, remembrance; 21. Vitarka, argumentativeness; 22. Sinta, anxiety; 23. Mati, thoughtfulness or resolve; 24. Triti, fortitude; 25. Harsha, happiness; 26. Utsukata, ardent desire; 27. Yagrata or achya, fierceness; 28. Amarsha, intolerance; 29. Aswaya, envy; 30. Kapila, fickleness; 31. Nidra, sleepiness; 32. Supti, dreaming; and 33. Bodha, awakening. Hereafter these vyabhikara bhavas will be reviewed systematically along with exemples. Besides the 33 emotions described above, there are 13 more mentioned as follows: matsarya, envy; udga, anxiety; damha, conceit; irshya, jealousy; vivka, reason; nimaya, judgment; clavium, impotence; kshama, forgiveness; asharya, astonishment; utkantha, longing; vinaya, humility; samshaya, doubt; and drishtata, impudence. Because these emotions are included within the 33 vyabhikara bhavas already mentioned, they are not separately described here. Matsarya, envy or malice, is included within aswaya, envy; udga, uneasiness, is included within trisa, fear; damha, conceit, is included within avahitya, concealment of emotions; and jealousy is included within amarsha, intolerance. Vivka, reason, and nirnaya, judgment, are included within mati, resolve or thoughtfulness; clavium, impotence, is included within dainyam, depression; kshama, forgiveness, is included within driti, fortitude; kutuka, curiosity or eagerness; and utkantha, longing, are included within atsukya, ardent desire; and vinaya, humility, is included within brita or laja, shame. Samshaya, doubt, is included within vitarka, argumentativeness; and drishtata, impudence, is included within kapila, fickleness. Notes: in his commentary on these two verses, Rupa Goswami explains how these 13 additional qualities are included within others previously mentioned. Malice, matsarya, is included within aswaya, envy, because the malice that one feels upon seeing the prosperity of others, is called matsarya. This malice superimposes defects even upon qualities. To project faults upon qualities is called envy, aswaya. Therefore matsarya or malice is said to be included within aswaya, envy. Uneasiness, udga, is included within fear, trisa, because the fear which suddenly arises due to lightning or other such phenomena is called trisa. In this fear, the uneasiness which is of a non-enduring nature is called udga. Conceit, damha, is included within avahidya, concealment, for the following reason. To conceal one's mentality, which is called avahidya, is pretentious. Similarly, to exhibit one's superiority, which is called damha, is also pretentious. Because both conceit and concealment are pretentious, damha is said to be included within avahidya. Jealousy, sertia, is included within amarsha, intolerance, for the following reason. The inability to tolerate the offenses of others is called amarsha or krodha, anger. The inability to tolerate the opulence of others is called irshya, jealousy. Since both have the inherent nature of intolerance, irshya is said to be included within amarsha. Determination or assessment of meaning is called mati, resolve or conclusiveness, which is also called nirnaya, judgment. The cause of judgment, nirnaya, is thought, vikara, and the cause of thought is reason, vivka. Since both reason, vivka, and nirnaya, judgment, are involved in the establishment of a conclusion, they are said to be included within mati, resolve. To consider oneself to be inferior to others is called dainyam, depression or humility. The absence of enthusiasm is called impotence, clavium. Since impotence is an aspect of depression, it is said to be included within dainya, depression. Steadiness of the mind is called driti, fortitude. Forgiveness, kshama, is called tolerance, sahishnuta, which is an aspect of steadiness. Therefore, forgiveness, kshama, is said to be within fortitude, driti. The inability to put something off till later is called atsukya, ardent desire. The desire to see a wondrous thing is called kutuka, curiosity or eagerness. Curiosity is also sometimes the cause of ardent desire. Therefore, curiosity, kutuka, is included within atsukya, ardent desire. Utkantha, anjing, is a subtle form of atsukya, ardent desire. Therefore, utkantha is also included within atsukya. Doubt, samshaya, is included within argumentativeness, vitarka, because without doubt, there is no possibility of argumentativeness. In the same way, unsteadiness, kapila, arises after impudence, drishtuta. Therefore unsteadiness is included within impudence. Some of the sankari bhavas become stimulants instigating the rise of other sankari bhavas. In that case they are also known as udapana vibhava. Again, some may become anubhavas of other sankari bhavas. Thus in the meeting of two emotions, the quality of vibhava and that of anubhava is seen simultaneously. For example, the feeling of envy, aswayata, gives rise to disgust, nirvita. Thus aswayata possesses the quality of vibhava in relationship to nirvita. Similarly, disgust, nirvita, follows after envy, aswaya. Thus nirvita is an anubhava of aswaya. Anxiety, sinta, follows after ardent desire, atsukya. Thus sinte is an anubhava of atsukya. Similarly, anxiety, sinta, gives rise to drowsiness, nidra. Thus sinta possesses the quality of vibhava in relationship to nidra. It should be understood that all other vyabhikari bhavas behave in the same way. The mutual relationship of cause and effect between all these vyabhikari bhavas, the sattvika bhavas and various kinds of actions, should be understood in accordance with general behavior. Translator's note: the meaning of this text will be made clear by the example given in the next text. When a person is intolerant of another, amarsha, and changes color, vaivarnya, he proceeds to condemn that person. Since intolerance and change of color give rise to condemnation, they are said to possess the quality of vibhava in relationship to it. Similarly, condemnation, ninda, follows after jealousy, aswaya. Therefore, condemnation is an anubhava of jealousy. Translator's note: in this example, change of color, Vaivarnya, is a Sattvika bhava, and intolerance, Amarsha, is a Sankari bhava. These two are the cause of condemnation, Ninda. Similarly, condemnation, Ninda, is the effect of jealousy, Aswaya, which is also a Sankari bhava. Thus we have mutual cause and effect of the Sattvika bhava Vaivarnya and the Vyabhikari bhava Amarsha together with the action of condemnation. The internal emotion of jealousy is made known by the external behavior of condemnation. When a person has been assaulted, prahara, or struck with a blow, he may become stupefied, samaha, and fall unconscious, pralaya. Since the act of being assaulted, prahara, gives rise to stupefaction, samaha, and fainting, pralaya, it possesses the quality of vibhava in relationship to them. Since assault, prahara, follows as a result of cruelty, agrayam, it is an anubhava of cruelty. The same pattern holds true in regards to other emotions. Trisa, fear, nidra, drowsiness, shrama, fatigue, alasia, laziness, madhuta, madness, and ajananata, ignorance, the last two arising from intoxication, are Sankari bhavas that sometimes follow in the wake of rati. Thus they are also known as anubhavas of rati. These 6 Sankari bhavas, namely, fear, drowsiness, fatigue, laziness, madness and ignorance, actually have no relationship with rati. But by indirect relation, they follow in due course of Krishna's pastimes. Translators note, there is no Krishna rati which directly gives rise to fear, drowsiness, fatigue, laziness, madness or ignorance. But in due course of Krishna's pastimes they may follow as an indirect result, and therefore it is said in text 202 that they are sometimes counted as anubhavas of rati. Vitarka, argument, mati, resolve, nirvida, self-disparagement, dhruti, fortitude, samrti, remembrance, harsha, jubilation, ananta, ignorance, dainyam, depression, and supti, dreaming, sometimes act as stimulants to rati and are therefore said to possess the quality of vibhava in relationship to rati. Sankari bhavas are of 2 kinds: paratantra, dependent, and svatantra, independent. Notes: Shanta, Dajya, Sakya, Vatsalya, and Madhura are 5 kinds of rati known as Mukhya rat. Anhajya, laughter, Karuna, compassion, Adbhut, astonishment, Vira, chivalry, Raudra, anger, Bhayanak, dread, and Vibhatsa, ghastliness, are 7 kinds of rati known as Gana rati. Those Sankari bhavas which are controlled by these 2 kinds of rati are called Paratantra Sankari bhavas. The appearance of Paratantra Sankari bhavas occurs only under the influence of emotions in relationship to Krishna. Those Sankari bhavas which are not controlled either by the Mukhya or Gana rati, or in other words, whose appearance is not dependent on emotions in relationship to Krishna, are called Svatantra Sankari bhavas. Paratantra Sankari bhavas are of 2 types: vara, principal, those which nourish either the Mukhya rati or Gana rati, and avara, subordinate, those which do not nourish the Mukhya or Gana rati. Vara Paratantra Sankari bhavas are again divided into 2: sikshit, direct, those which nourish the Mukhya rati, and vyavahita, indirect, those which nourish the Gana rati. Those Sankari bhavas which nourish the Mukhya rati are called sikshit vara Paratantra Sankari bhavas. The following is an example of sikshit vara Paratantra Sankari bhava. Alas! What is the use of possessing eyes that are unable to behold the land of Mathura? Simply by hearing the name of Mathura, the hairs of my body stand on end and I begin to dance. In this statement nirvida, despondency or self-disparagement, is expressed, and this is an example of sikshit vara Paratantra Sankari bhava. Notes: in text 207 it was mentioned that Paratantra, dependent, Sankari bhavas are of 2 types: sikshit, direct, and yavahita, indirect. Although there is a difference between these 2, they are both of the same kind, namely vara Paratantra, in other words they nourish either the Mukhya or Ganarati. Those Sankari bhavas which are components, angatva, of the Mukhya and Ganarasa are known as vara Paratantra, and those Sankari bhavas which are not components of these two are called avara paratantra. This will be further explained in text 213. In the example above, the desire to see the land of Mathura is born of Bhagavad Ratai. Therefore, the Sankari bhava displayed here of nirvida, despondency, is called sikshit, direct, because it nourishes the mukhya ratai. Translator's note: the suffix tva in Sanskrit is used to convert common nouns and adjectives into abstract nouns denoting a quality or estate of bhimg. Thus they convey the sense of ness or hood, as in happiness or childhood. The word angatva used here in Jiva Goswami's commentary and also in the Sanskrit to text 213 literally means the state of being apart. Sankari bhavas which arise in relationship to mukhya and gana ratai and which give nourishment to the same are called components of mukhya and gana ratai, vara paratantra Sankari bhavas. Those which do not arise in relationship to mukhya and gana ratai and which do not give nourishment to the later are not components of mukhya and gana ratai, avara paratantra Sankari bhavas. Those Sankari bhavas which nourish the gana ratai are called vyavahita paratantra. The following is an example of vyavahita paratantra Sankari bhava 1 Ambima. My two arms are just like thunderbolts. Yet these two arms were not able to smash Shishupala when he was blaspheming Krishna. Therefore all condemnation upon them. In this exam ple, Bhima's condemnation of his arms is an instance of nirvida, self-disparagement, which has arisen under the influence of anger. Anger is one of the secondary mellows, gana rasa, of sthāyi bhava. Therefore, nirvida is taken here as vyavahita vara paratantra because it nourishes the gana ratai. Those paratantra Sankari bhavas which are not components of the mukhya and gana rasa are called avara paratantra, Sankari bhavas. The following is an example of avara paratantra Sankari bhava when Arjuna saw Sri Krishna in his universal form, whose flaming mouths and illuminated heads were devouring all living entities existing in the universe and grinding them between his teeth. He became dried up and forgot himself. In this instance, irresistible fear arisen from ghastly activities, covered the natural ratai of Arjuna toward Krishna. From that fear illusion arose which was under the control of the fear and which gave nourishment to the fear. Notes: seeing the universal form of the Lord, the fear which arose in Arjuna was not that which is associated with gana ratai. Only due to seeing such a fearful form with which he was not acquainted and due to beholding such a ghastly vision, did fear arise out of apprehension that all people would be devoured. Arjuna's natural inborn ratai was covered by that fear. From the statements of Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita it may also be understood that the natural love which Arjuna had for Sri Krishna was covered at that time. Therefore, the fear as well as the illusion which arose from fear, are not associated with the fear of Ganarati. Arjuna's illusion was devoid of relationship with Krishna ratai. It arose merely from fear. His illusion was under the control of fear and gave nourishment only to that fear. Since the Sankari bhava of illusion, moha, did not give nourishment to fear in relationship to Krishna ratai, and since the fear was not that of Gana ratai, this is an example of avara paratantra Sankari bhava. A government official is always dependent. In other words, he is always under the subordination of the state. But when he goes to collect taxes from the citizens he is seen to be independent. In the same way, Svatantra Sankari bhavas are also always dependent, paratantra, yet they are sometimes seen as independent. Those who are learned in the science of discerning emotions say that Svatantra Sankari bhavas are of three types: 1. Ratai shanya, devoid of ratai; 2. Ratai anasparshan, which is devoid of ratai but which subsequently acquires contact with ratai; and 3. Ratai gandhi, with a slight trace of ratai. Notes: in the Svatantra Sankari bhavas, the condition of independence is obvious in those emotions which are devoid of ratai, ratai shanya. Those which subsequently contact ratai, ratai anasparshan, and those with a slight trace of ratai, ratai gandhi, are always paratantra, dependent, yet they are sometimes seen as being independent. Emotions which arise in persons who are devoid of ratai are called ratai shanya. The following is an example of Ratai Shanyasavitantra Sankari Bhava as given in the Srimad Bhagavatam, October 23, 39. The Yajnik Brahmanas said, condemnation upon our high birth which has provided us with Brahmanical power, the sacred thread and initiation by a spiritual master. Condemnation upon our learning, vows of celibacy, and extensive knowledge. Condemnation upon our family lineage, and upon our eternal, nitya, and occasional, namatika, duties, for we are averse to adhokshaja Sri Krishna. Notes, in this example, nirvida, self-disparagement, arose in the Yajnik Brahmanas. They were devoid of ratai towards Krishna. The nirvida which they displayed is svatantra, independent, because it is not related to Krishna ratai. It is a mere shadow of ratai which is indicated by their own statement of aversion toward Krishna. Therefore, the Sankari Bhava displayed here of nirvida is ratai shanyasvatantra. That emotion, which even though devoid of ratai itself, later contacts ratai due to some particular incident, is called ratai anasparshana bhava. Translators note, ratai anasparshana bhava literally means that emotion which subsequently, anu, touches, sparsha, or contacts ratai. This will become clear by the explanation given below. The following is an example of ratai anasparsha svatantra Sankari Bhava being very perturbed and deafened by the thunderous roar of the dreadful Aristasura demon. The young cowherd girls began to yell, "O Krishna! Save us, save us!" In this instance, trisa, fear, is cited as an independent emotion, svatantra bhava. Notes, ratai for Krishna is always present within the young cowherd girls of Braja. Therefore the Sankari bhavas manifested by them are always parantantra, being under the subjugation of Krishna ratai. In this example, seeing the dreadful Aristasura demon, fear, trisa, arose independently, svatantra bhava. This fear did not arise in them under the instigation of Krishna ratai. If fear arises upon apprehending Krishna's distress, then it is said to be under the subjugation of Krishna ratai. But in the case of the cowherd girls, fear arose due to the apprehension of their own distress. It did not arise from Krishna ratai, yet later it came into contact with ratai. How that is so, is because they called Sri Krishna for their protection. Only on account of possessing ratai for Krishna did they call for him. Only in this call for help is their ratai being intimated at. The fear of the young cowherd girls which was devoid of any trace of ratai, came into contact with ratai. Because the fear which was devoid of ratai, later came into touch, sparsha, with the ratai which was naturally within them, this is taken as an example of rati anasparshana bhava. Those Sankari bhavas which, in spite of being independent, svatantra, manifest a trace of ratai, are called ratai gandhi svatantra bhava. The following is an example of ratai gandhi svatantra Sankari bhava. Mukara Devi said, "O Radhi, I recognize that yellow clothing you are wearing on your body. Therefore, don't even try to hide it." Hearing these words of the respectable woman, Sri Radha immediately lowered her head in shame and covered her face with her veil. In this instance, the shame of Srimati Radharani is cited as an example of ratai gandhi bhava. Notes, in this example, the shame which arose in Srimati Radharani is a Sankari bhava, but it is to be understood as svatantra, independent, because it did not arise from her natural inborn ratai. This shame arose because the respectable woman Mukara understood Sri Radha's hidden secret. That her secret was known by a respectable woman was the only cause for shame to arise. Therefore, this shame is independent, svatantra. It is not subordinate to Krishna ratai. In spite of this, the shame of Sri Radha manifests a trace of ratai, ratai gandha. Only due to the ratai which Sri Radha has for Sri Krishna was Krishna's yellow clothing found present on her limbs, as a consequence of any endeavors in relationship to that ratai. Therefore, although her shame was not produced from Krishna ratai, it has a slight connection with ratai. Therefore, it is accepted that the svatantra Sankari bhava of shame observed in this example is ratai gandhi svatantra bhava. Sankaras bhavas which exist in improper conditions, asthan, are called Sankari Bhava Abhasa. These improper conditions are of two types: pratikulya, unfavorable, and anasatya, improper. Emotions which arise from feelings of hostility are called pratikulya. The following is an example of pratikulya Sankari Bhava Abhasa. Hearing of Krishna's killing of the Kesi demon, Kamsa spoke as follows: this Kesi demon in the form of a horse, was as dear to me as my own life. Alas! Now he has been killed by an illiterate cowherd boy who is unskilled in combat. One who had easily defeated the king of the demigods, Indra, no longer know the purpose of this contemptible life, now that this tragedy has befallen me. The disparagement, nirvida, expressed in this example is called pratikulya abhasa. Notes: Sri Krishna is an enemy of Kamsa. Disparagement, nirvida, arose in Kamsa upon seeing the valor of the enemy. In actuality though, this emotion of nirvida was not a Sankari Bhava because it did not arise from Rati in relationship to Krishna. This self-disparagement resembles the Sankari Bhava known as nirvida, and therefore it is accepted as nirvida abhasa. Sankari Bhavas are favorably situated toward the subject Sri Krishna. Those which are unfavorable are improperly situated. It is intimated here that because Kamsa was unfavorable toward Krishna, there is impropriety in the emotion resembling nirvida Sankari Bhava. Therefore it is called an abhasa. The following is another example of pratikulya Sankari Bhava abhasa. While condemning Akrura, Kamsa spoke as follows: O fool! You are imagining this cowherd boy to be the supreme lord of the universe, simply because he subdued the Kaliya serpent who is just like a harmless water snake and lifted Govardhana hill which is just like a clump of earth. What is so astonishing about that? The emotion cited here is an abhasa of aswaya, envy. Anasatya, improper, Sankari Bhava abhasa is of two types: 1. Asatyatvam, non-existence, and 2. Ayajitvam, incapability. In non-moving living entities, a prani, there is non-existence of Sankari Bhavas, asatyatvam, and in animals, tiryag, there is incapability to experience the Sankari Bhavas, ayajitvam. Translator's note: the word anasatya means the conditions under which the consideration of an emotion as a Sankari Bhava is improper. These improper considerations are of two types: 1. Asatyatva, when there is non-existence of the Sankari Bhava, and ayajitva, when there is inability to experience Sankari Bhavas. In the non-moving species of life there is no possibility of experiencing Sankari Bhavas. Therefore it is said, that in them there is asatyatva, non-existence of Sankari Bhavas. In the animals, there is inability to experience Sankari Bhavas, and therefore it is said that in them there is ayajitva, incapability. All this will become clear from the examples given below. The following is an example of a praniyasatyatva anasatya Sankari Bhava abhasa, Sankari Bhava abhasa in which there is the impropriety of non-existence. One devotee tried to console a kadamba tree who was condemning its life because it had been unable to serve Sri Krishna even once by offering its shade. O kadamba! Do not be so miserable. After killing the Kaliya serpent, Sri Krishna will grant your desire and thus you will ascend. Notes: in this example, the kadamba tree which was inert, a prani, exhibited an abhasa of the Sankari Bhava known as nirvida, self-disparagement. In actuality, because of being inert, there is no possibility of self-disparagement arising in the kadamba tree. Therefore its self-disparagement is non-existent, asatya. The person who made the above-mentioned statement targeted at the kadamba tree, understood within his own mind that such self-disparagement had arisen in the tree. Therefore, in this example there is impropriety, anusatya, in the form of non-existence, asatyatva, and in this improper condition the superimposition of the Sankari Bhava known as nirvida is but an abhasa. The following is an example of tiryag ayajitva anasatya Sankari Bhava abhasa, Sankari Bhava abhasa in which there is the impropriety of incapability. A peacock said today, leaving aside even the wings of Garuda, Sri Krishna has held my sanctified feathers. Therefore, what other bird can be a match for me? Notes: in this example, an abhasa of garva, pride, is seen in a peacock. In reality, there is no possibility of this kind of pride being fostered in a peacock. Such an experience is not possible in a peacock. A person seeing a peacock feather in the turban of Sri Krishna, acknowledges the good fortune of the peacock and then transposes the conception of pride on the peacock. Therefore, this is an impropriety, anasatya, in the form of ayajyatya, incapability, and in this improper condition, the superimposition of the Sankari bhava known as garva, pride, is but an abhasa. The author comments as follows regarding the analysis of the above-mentioned Sankari bhava abhasa. The Kadamba trees etc. of Braja are bearing knowledge and realization which is appropriate for their species. In other words, they experience sweetness in relationship to the Lord. It is only from the common viewpoint that the symptoms observed in them are said to be a matter of Sankari bhava abhasa. Notes, in the Kadamba trees etc. of Braja, there is both knowledge and realization which is appropriate for their species. But it is not identical to the knowledge possessed by human beings. If it were so, then the lover and beloved, Sri Sri Radha Krishna, would have to hide their confidential amorous pastimes from them. Such a condition would present a hindrance to the pastimes. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, 11/12/8, it is clearly described that the gopis, the cows, the mountains, the deer, the snakes and all other unintelligent life forms residing in Vraja have love or emotion towards Sri Krishna. However, this emotion is of a general type which is not accompanied by reason. Rupa Goswami has said that because their knowledge was devoid of reason, the word samanya drishtaya, common or general viewpoint, is given in the above verse. In other words, from the common viewpoint, the trees etc. are said to be incapable of expressing emotions. Sripad Vishvanatha Chakravarti Thakura has clearly said that the trees of Vraja have experience only regarding the Supreme Lord. Sripad Mukunda Dasa Goswami has said that only in order to give an example of Sankari bhava abhasa, the viewpoint of ordinary trees etc. has been transposed upon the Kadamba trees, etc. of Vraja. Therefore, their emotion is said to be an abhasa. In reality, they always experience bhakti rasa in relationship to the Lord. Just as the Lord is always devoid of hunger, thirst, etc. But hunger, thirst, sleep, etc. are manifested by the pastime potency of the Lord for the purpose of nourishing the uniqueness of rasa. Similarly, imitation of the ordinary species of trees, etc. is exhibited by the trees, of Vraja, under the influence of the pastime potency in order to nourish the uniqueness of rasa. The purport of all these statements is that the Kadamba trees, peacocks, etc. of Vraja are not ordinary trees and birds. They are all eternal associates of Sri Krishna, and their emotions, bhava, towards Sri Krishna exists from time immemorial. In order to facilitate the pastimes, the knowledge residing in them is devoid of reason. Therefore, their emotion, bhava, is here said to be an abhasa. At various times, the Sankari bhavas exist in 4 different conditions: 1. Utpatti, the stage of generation; 2. Sandhi, when there is union of 2 emotions; 3. Shabalya, allaying of each preceding emotion by the succeeding one; and 4. Shanti, pacification of a highly developed emotion. All these conditions are possible only upon the advent or generation of emotion which is called utpatti. Atra harshatpatti, the following is an example of utpatti, generation. At twilight, when the setting sun was very red, Mother Yashoda heard the high sound of the flute nearby, and a stream of milk flowed from her breasts, thus moistening her bodice. Here the generation, utpatti, of the Sankari bhava known as harsha, jubilation, is seen. The following is an example of utpatti, generation, in connection with aswaya, envy. O Sakavishaka at dawn, when you suddenly appeared in the bedroom, your Saka Sri Radha, being confused by your arrival, tried to fasten the belt around her waist which had been loosened in the course of amorous sports, but she was completely unable to dose. Just see how splendid that belt has become now that it is bent irregularly. When Sri Radha heard this confidential description from the mouth of Sri Madhava, her curved eyebrows became bent in anger and she cast a scowling glance at Sri Krishna. May Sri Radha purify you by the casting of such a glance. Notes, in this example, aswaya, envy or intolerance, arose on account of malice instigated by love for Sri Krishna as a result of his jokingly manifesting his excellence. The mutual union of two emotions of identical nature, samamarupa, or of different nature, binarupa, is called sandhi. If two emotions having the same nature, samamarupa, arise from different causes and meet simultaneously, this is called sandhi produced by the meeting of two alike emotions, samamarupa sandhi. The following is an example of samamarupa sandhi, the union of two alike emotions arising from different causes. Sri Yashoda, the wife of Gokulapati Sri Nanda, dreamt that the Putana demon was lying in her house, and that her son Sri Krishna smilingly sat on her chest. Seeing this dream, Sri Yashodaji became stunned for some time. In this example there is the meeting of two kinds of jarada, the condition of being stunned, arising from seeing the object of her adoration, ishta, and also from the perception of calamity, anishta. Notes, one kind of jarada, becoming stunned, arose in Sri Yashoda as a result of intense bliss from seeing Sri Krishna, the object of her adoration, ishta. A second kind of jarada arose due to the apprehension aroused by seeing the calamity, anishta, presented by the Putana demon. Both kinds of jarada are of the same nature, samamarupa, because in both, there is manifest immobility of the limbs. But the cause of becoming stunned is different. The cause of one condition of becoming stunned is the bliss produced from seeing Sri Krishna, and the cause of the other is the apprehension for the safety of Sri Krishna due to the perception of the Putana demon. But the nature of becoming stunned is the same. Therefore, this is an example of sandhi, union, produced by the meeting of two alike emotions. If two emotions arise from the same cause or from different causes, the meeting of those two emotions is called bina bhavadvaya milana janat sandhi, sandhi produced from the meeting of two different emotions. The following is an example of ekahichu bina bhavadvaya sandhi, sandhi produced from the meeting of two emotions arising from the same cause. Mother Yashoda spoke as follows regarding her son Sri Balakrishna, the restlessness of this child is unbearable. He is always running in and out of the cow pen. His fearlessness brings both jubilation, harsha, and apprehension, shanka, to my heart. In this example there is a meeting of two emotions, jubilation, harsha, and shanka, apprehension. The cause of both of these is the same, namely seeing the restless and fearless nature of Sri Krishna. The following is an example of bina hichu bina bhavadvaya sandhi, sandhi produced from the meeting of two emotions arising from different causes. When Sri Devaki saw before her, her son Sri Krishna, with blooming eyes like lotus petals, her eyes filled with cold tears due to jubilation, harsha. However, seeing the faces of the extremely powerful wrestlers, her eyes filled with hot tears due to apprehension. In this example the meeting of two emotions, jubilation, harsha, and despair, vishada, arising from two different causes is seen. When the meeting of several emotions arising either from one cause or from several causes, come clearly into view, it is called anikabhava sandhi. The following is an example of ekahichu anikabhava sandhi, the meeting of several emotions arising from one cause. Once when Srimati Radharani was walking in the forest along the bank of the Kalindi, Sri Mukunda, who was very powerful, suddenly appeared and blocked her path. Within herself, she was smiling out of jubilation, harsha. Her restless eyes moved with artistic splendor due to intense longing, atsukya. Externally she manifested contempt due to pride, garva. Her eyes became red with anger, amarsha, and with the movement of her eyebrows, she cast a scornful glance, aswaya, at Sri Krishna, which was most captivating. In this way the jewel of the family of Vrishabhanu exhibited her supreme excellence. In this example there is the meeting of several emotions, harsha, jubilation, atsukya, intense longing, garva, pride, amarsha, anger, and aswaya, envy. These are all arising from one cause, namely Sri Krishna obstructing the path of Sri Radha. The following is an example of Anika Hichu Anika Bhava Sandhi, the meeting of several emotions arising from different causes, whenever any festivals were celebrated at the house of Sri Nandaraja, Sri Radhaj would also grace such occasions. During one such occasion, Srimati Radharani was wearing a necklace beneath her clothes, given to her by Sri Krishna. In this situation, Sri Radha saw her mother before her and she began to reflect within her mind. For a chaste girl like me, it will be considered improper to wear the necklace of Sri Krishna around my neck. My mother has surely detected this secret. Padma, the adversary of Srimati Radharani, seeing that she was wearing the necklace of Sri Krishna, began to smile, thinking that Srimati would be exposed. Seeing this, Sri Radha lowered her face in anger. Seeing Sri Krishna in the distance, her face blossomed with happiness. Seeing her husband Abhimanyu present at the festival, Sri Radha's face became withered. In this example, shame, lajja, arose from seeing her mother. Anger, amarsha, arose from seeing Padma. Jubilation, harsha, arose from seeing Sri Krishna, and lamentation, vishada, arose from seeing Abhimanyu. In this way, there is the union of four emotions arising from four different causes. The aggregation of many different emotions is called shabalya. Otherwise stated, the allaying of each preceding emotion by the succeeding one is called shabalya. The following is an example of shabalyam. Kamsa began to think within himself that Krishna is but a child, what harm can he possibly do to me? He has no power. Here pride, garva, is manifested. Then again remembering the valor of Sri Krishna, he spoke as follows. Alas! This child has annihilated my friends. Here pride, garva, is superseded by despair, vishada. Kamsa thought, what shall one do now? Should one immediately go and take shelter of that Krishna? Here despair, vishad, is superseded by humiliation, dainya. That very moment he thought, no, I cannot take shelter of him because no hero would do as such. Here humiliation, dainya, is superseded by resolve, mati. Again Kamsa said, why should be afraid? I'll have many extremely powerful wrestlers to support me. Here resolve, mati, is superseded by remembrance, smriti. But the next moment he began to think, how will my powerful wrestlers be able to defeat that Krishna? He even lifted Govardhana hill. Here remembrance, smriti, is superseded by apprehension, shanka. Then he thought, today, shall I go to Vrajabhumi and begin to massacre all the residents there? Here apprehension, shanka, is superseded by anger, amarsha. Then again he considered, but even that I cannot do because my intelligence and heart are trembling out of fear of that child. Here anger, amarsha, is superseded by fear, vayadat. In this way the mutual aggregation of 8 Sankari bhavas, pride, garva, despair, vishad, humiliation, dainya, resolve, mati, remembrance, smriti, apprehension, shanka, anger, amarsha, and fear, trisa, is seen if this verse. In Bhava Sandhi, 2 or more emotions of equal strength appear together at the same time. But in Bhava Shabalya, the preceding emotion is suppressed by the succeeding emotion. This is the difference between Bhava Sandhi and Bhava Shabalya. The following is another example of Shabalya condemnation upon these eyes of mine, which were not able to behold the land of Mathura. Here self-disparagement, nirvida, is exhibited. Actually, it doesn't matter if one could not see Mathura, because with these eyes I have acquired such knowledge that has made even the kings my servant. Here self-disparagement, nirvida, is superseded by pride, garva. But education without worship of the Supreme Lord cannot save one from the time factor. Thinking this he said, time destroys everything. Here pride, garva, is superseded by apprehension, shanka, dot. My home always overflows with prosperity due to the goddess of fortune. Here apprehension, shanka, is superseded by fortitude, dhriti. But my body is becoming weaker every day. Here fortitude, dhriti, is superseded by despair, vishad. Therefore, while residing at home, shall worship the Supreme Lord. Here despair, vishad, is superseded by resolve, mati. Copyright, but my mind is being forcibly drawn toward Vrindavan. Here resolve, mati, is superseded by ardent longing, atsukya. In this way, the aggregation of 7 emotions self-disparagement, nirvida, pride, garva, apprehension, shanka, fortitude, dhriti, despair, vishad, resolve, mati, and ardent longing, atsukya, is taken as an example of bhavashabalya. The dissolution of a highly intense emotion is called bhavashanti. The following is an example of bhavashanti. Once the cowherd boys of Braja were searching for Sri Krishna, the killer of Aghasura, in the forest. Not being able to see him, their faces became gloomy and their complexion faded. Just then they heard the mellow sweet sound of the flute from on top of Govardhana hill. Immediately the hairs of their bodies stood erect and they became radiant with happiness. In this example, the dissolution, or pacification of despair, vishad, is seen. Next ahead, in concluding the subject of Sankari Bhavas, some special information is given. The author Sri Rupa Goswami, out of his humility, has said that even though the words, meanings, and rasa comprising his speech, contain nothing astonishing, he has nevertheless given some examples of various kinds of ecstatic emotions, bhavas. The 33 Vyabhikari bhavas, plus the 7 secondary mellows laughter, hajya, wonder, adbhuta, chivalry, vira, compassion, karuna, anger, raudra, dread, bhayanika, and ghastliness, bibhatsa, plus 1 principal mellow, out of the 5 principal mellows of Shanta, Dajya, Sakya, Vatsalya, and Madhura, only 1 is counted. All these taken together total 41 emotions, bhavas. Translator's note, Srila Jiva Goswami explains that the word ashtau in the above verse should be understood to mean the 7 secondary mellows, laughter, anger, etc., plus 1 of the principal mellows, mukuratai shanta, dajya, etc. The word ashtau here should not be confused with the 8 sattvika bhavas, for they are not mukhya bhakti rupa. Only 1 of the principles mellows is counted here because within any given devotee 1 kind of Krishna ratai will be present. The mental disposition, siddhavrti, which arises from the manifestation of these emotions, is said to bring about transformations in the body and senses. Sometimes these emotions are innate, svabhavik bhava, and sometimes they are incidental, agantuka bhava. Those emotions which are innate remain, pervading both the external and internal being of the devotee. Translator's note, the svabhavika bhava refers to the sthāyi bhava and the agantuka bhava refers to the vyabhikari bhavas. Just as in manjushtha, an Indian herb which is used as a natural red dye, or any substance in which the color red is innate, redness is the permanent condition which pervades both within and without. Thus if that substance is contacted even slightly, redness will come out. In a similar way, in the devotee who has even a slight contact with the stimulating factors, vibhava, his natural inborn ratai will be aroused. Although the ratai which follows after the innate emotion, svabhavik bhava, is of one type, it manifests in many varieties. Just as white cloth may be dyed red, so the incidental emotions, agantuka bhavas, are manifested in the heart of the devotee by the influence of the innate emotions, svabhavika bhavas. Therefore, they are called anubhavas or effects of the innate emotions. Notes, in general, ratai is of one type. In other words, it is full of affection toward Krishna. But the particular impressions within the consciousness, vasana, which dictate the type of affection toward Krishna possessed by different devotees is of different varieties. Therefore, according to those impressions or according to the desires of a devotee to serve Krishna in a particular way, one type of affection toward Krishna, or in other words, one type of Krishna ratai manifests itself. In the Shanta Bhaktas, Shantarati is manifest. In the Dajya Bhaktas, Dajyarati is manifest. In this way Rati is manifest in various forms. Rati of all different varieties is inherent within the Lord's eternal associates. Rati is eternally situated in them since time immemorial. In practicing devotees, sadhakas, who follow the Rati of the eternal associates, the corresponding Rati also develops in them. From the very beginning, Rati corresponding to the Rati found in the eternal associates, exists in the hearts of those devotees, the sadhakas. If white cloth is dyed red, its redness is incidental, agantuka. It is not inherent, svabhavika, within its nature, as is the case with manjushtha. Similarly, the incidental, agantuka, emotions are not inherent. They are only anubhavas or effects of the inherent emotions, svabhavika bhavas. Generally, the characteristic feature of all ecstatic emotions, bhavas, arise on account of the difference in the specific stimulating factors, vibhava, that the devotee is exposed to, and on account of the difference in the moods, bhava, of different devotees. Because of the difference in the characteristic qualities of various devotees, their minds, mana, are of different types. The rise of specific emotions instigated by the stimulating factors is under the jurisdiction of the mind. Therefore, according to the disposition of the mind, there will be a corresponding rise of emotions, bhavas. Translator's note: a review of texts 250 to 257 will be helpful, as they are a lead into the discussion which is to follow in texts 258 to 270. It is mentioned in text 250 that the 33 Sankari bhavas, the 7 indirect mellows, Gana Rati, plus the Sthai bhava of the particular devotee, all together make 41 emotions. In text 252 it is said that a certain mental dispassion arises from the combination of these different emotions, which brings about transformations in the body and senses, in the form of anubhavas and sattvika bhavas. The foundation for all this is the svabhavika bhava. As mentioned in text 254 and the purport to text 255, Krishnarati is an anugata, a follower, of the svabhavika bhava. The svabhavika bhava refers to the impressions within the heart, vasana, to serve Krishna in a particular way. From those impressions, one kind of Krishnarati arises. Then, according to the characteristics of different devotees, the mind will also be of different varieties, text 257. The emotions which ensue are under the control of the mind and are dictated by the particular mental disposition of the devotee, as well as the particular stimulating factors, vibhava, which come into play in a given situation. Having explained that the rise of emotions is under the control of the mind or the heart of the devotee, Srila Rupa Goswami then proceeds to describe varieties of conditions of the heart in texts 258 to 270. A devotee whose heart is hard, karkasha, is of 3 varieties. The heart may be heavy, garishta being compared to gold in terms of its hardness, grave, gambhira being compared to the ocean in depth, or big, mahishtha being compared to a great city in size. These are all characteristics of a heart which is said to be hard, karkasha. In devotees whose hearts possess such characteristics, even though ecstatic emotions may thoroughly arise in them, because they are not clearly expressed trough transformations in the external body and senses, people are not able to perceive them. A devotee whose heart is soft, komal, is also of 3 varieties. The heart may be light, lagastha being compared to cotton in terms of its lightness, shallow, uttana being compared to a small pond in depth, or tiny, kashodishtha being compared to a small cottage in size. These are all characteristics of a heart which is said to be soft, komal. In devotees whose hearts possess such characteristics, even a slight uprise of emotion is clearly visible through transformations in the body and senses, and therefore people are able to see them very distinctly. The heart which is heavy like a lump of gold is called garishtha, heavy. The heart which is light like a ball of cotton is called lagishtha, light. Emotion which arises in the heart of these 2, varieties should be understood to be like the wind. The heart which is grave, or deep, like the ocean is called Gambhira, deep. The heart which is shallow like a small pond is called Uttana, shallow. Emotion which arises in the heart of these two varieties, should be understood to be like a great mountain peak. The heart which is very large like a great city is called Mahishtha, very big. The heart which is small like a cottage is called Kashodistha, tiny. Emotion which arises in the heart of these two varieties can be compared to a lamp and an elephant. Notes: a strong wind has no influence on a lump of gold, but even a slight breeze will send a cotton ball flying. Similarly, in the heart which is Garishtha, heavy, even when there is a very powerful rise of emotion, bhava, no transformation is seen. But in the heart which is Lajishtha, light, even when there is a small rise of emotion, transformations are clearly seen. In the ocean, even great mountain peaks are not seen. But even an ordinary stone, when thrown, in a small pond, causes a noticeable displacement of the water. In the same way, in the heart which is Gambhira, deep or grave, even when a very powerful emotion arises it is not seen. But in the heart which is Uttana, shallow, even a small rise of emotion can bring about an upheaval causing clear transformations. In a great city, lamps and elephants are not noticed. But in a small village, lamps and elephants are clearly seen. Similarly in the heart which is Mahishtha, very big, no transformations are seen on the rise of emotion. But in the heart which is *Kashodishtha, tiny, transformations resulting from the rise of emotion are immediately seen. The hard heart is said to be of three kinds: 1. Like a diamond, or a thunderbolt; 2. Like gold; and 3. Like shellac. Emotion, bhava, which arises in these three varieties of hard hearts should be understood to be like fire. A diamond is extremely hard. Even fire cannot melt it to any extent. Similarly the hearts of persons who are engaged in severe austerities, in other words neophyte Shanta Bhaktas, are extremely hard. They never become melted or softened. Gold becomes melted when exposed to a very high temperature of fire. In the same way, the heart which is hard like gold, becomes melted by intense emotions. Shellac is completely melted by a slight temperature of fire. Similarly the heart which is like shellac is melted by even a slight rise of emotion. Softness of the heart is of three kinds: 1. Like wax; 2. Like butter; and 3. Like nectar. Emotion which arises in the soft heart of these three varieties, is like the heat of the sun. Wax and butter are easily melted by the heat of the sun. Similarly the heart of the devotee which is like wax or butter becomes melted by a slight contact with emotions, bhava. Nectar is by nature always liquid. Similarly the hearts of Sri Krishna's dear most devotees are by nature just like nectar. They always remain soft and melted. The heart of special devotees of Sri Krishna always possesses 2 or 3 of the above mentioned characteristics, such as Garishtha, heaviness, etc. But when the devotee is affected by very powerful symptoms of ecstatic love, the heart becomes severely agitated in various ways. In this condition it is not possible to hide the emotions. As it is said in Danakli Kaumudi, 2, the ocean which is the resting place of Sri Narayana, is always very deep and can never be crossed by anyone. Nor does it ever extend beyond its boundaries. But in spite of this, on the rising of the full moon, the ocean is incapable of checking its agitation. In the same way, the devotee who has taken full shelter of Sri Hari, who constantly envisions the Lord within his heart, who is grave, who is capable of hiding his prema, who is possessed of all good qualities and who naturally abides by the proper codes of behavior, is incapable of suppressing the transformations of ecstasy which arise when prema reaches its zenith. Notes: heaviness, Garishthatva, and lightness, Lagishtatva, of the heart have been described in order to illustrate the perplexity, Vikshepa, and non-perplexity, Avikshapa, of the heart that arises upon being exposed to the influence of the Vyabhikari bhavas. Similarly, the heart is said to be hard, Karkasha, or soft, komal, according to its degree of meltability or non-meltability by the Vyabhikari bhavas. The heart which is unmoved by a slight contact with the Vyabhikari bhavas is said to be heavy, Garishtha, and the heart which is easily moved is said to be light, Lagishtha. In reality, the heart is neither heavy nor light nor hard. Only according to the degree of emotional frenzy experienced by the heart on contact with the Vyabhikari bhavas is the heart said to be hard or soft. Brahma Jnana and Aisvarya Jnana cause the heart to become hard in relationship to Krishna. Madhurya Jnana alone can produce affection, sneha, towards Sri Krishna. Brahma Jnana and Aisvarya Jnana can produce awe and reverence, but they cannot produce affection. The mind of all individuals is produced from the mode of goodness. Therefore, this distinguishing feature, between Brahma Jnana and Madhurya Jnana, is not due to the mind. This distinguishing feature is due only to the difference in the disposition of the heart, Bhavantara. The disposition of the heart, Bhavantara, is of two types: material, Prakritabhava, and spiritual, Bhagavatabhava. In Kanishtha Adhikaras, those situated in Brahma Jnana and Aisvarya Jnana, the material disposition, Prakritabhava, alone, is the cause of hardness or softness of the heart, Garishta etc. But in Uttama Adhikaras, the spiritual disposition, Bhagavatabhava, is the exclusive cause of hardness or softness of the heart. In comparison to that emotion which brings about the condition of the heart which is compared to nectar, all other emotions are insignificant. The degree of meltability of the heart varies in accordance with the Sthāyi bhava. The progressive scale of meltability of the heart is mentioned in texts 263 and 266, gold, shellac, wax, butter, and nectar. Beginning from gold, diamond is not included here because other than in very exceptional cases it cannot be melted. Each successive substance has a higher degree of meltability. The Vyabhikari bhavas which bring about agitation or non-agitation of the heart are also measured in accordance with the Sthāyi bhava. It is the inherent nature of the self, Svabhavika bhava, or in other words the Sthāyi bhava, which is the cause of the permanent condition of the heart such as heaviness, lightness etc. Whereas the incidental emotions, Agantuka bhava, or in other words the Vyabhikari bhavas, are the cause of perplexity or agitation of the heart. By the application of certain chemicals, even diamond can be melted. Similarly, if there is extreme augmentation of the Sthāyi bhava, by the Vyabhikari bhavas, then even the heart which possesses the characteristics of heaviness and hardness can be agitated. In support of this, the evidence of Dainakeli Kaumudi is cited. Thus ends the fourth wave of the southern division of Sri Bhakti Rasamrta Sindhu entitled Vyabhikari Bhava.